Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday, the 28th of February, 2024. Happy hump day, everyone. I've been up since 2 a.m. yet again. Can't sleep. Just living in Canada these days. There's so much overwhelming stress in the lives of so many people, including myself. Profoundly impacted by the level of incompetence with the career cabinet members, right? So it's not even career politicians, but career Senate and cabinet members who have no real job or work experience or life experience, have for decades now been trying to just claw at that entitled, pool, you know what I mean, and have that lifestyle and exploit us, right? And they're taking so much money, right? So they know that as soon as they leave office, and do another job, they will never have like the same amount of power and prestige and money that they can steal from us as they do now. So a lot of these people are just not letting that go, and it's criminal. And unfortunately, we have government that are aiding and abetting criminals, just like throughout history, and not on the right side of humanity. And there's people that have said that, if they were, if this ever happened, and now in this day and age, that, I would totally call it out in government. I would totally, Adolf Hitler, there would never be an Adolf Hitler in Canada, because not under my watch. Well, under your watch, under all your watches, it's under your watch. What's happening for over a decade at least, but decades. And so, and the people that I know in government, including myself, that have been speaking out on the bullshit, getting fired, character assassinated, harassed, murdered, people committing suicide. Mainstream media is a joke. And not only a joke, actually, that's putting it way too lightly. They are actually criminal organizations now, and they're trying to put in new censorship bills within cabinet, and talking about how there are organizations or independent journalists that are sharing different information than mainstream media. No shit, and yeah, no shit, because they work for you. They're your puppets, state-funded, Gestapo-funded, dictator-funded media, propaganda, and they haven't been telling the truth for decades either. And so, and it's good that even Vanity Fair is finally getting called out for it too, because people even think that something like, even as like innocent as Vanity Fair, like a social media platform that has nothing to do with news, they're not a credible source either, and they're also part of the propaganda. And I even showed with Alice Hines, like Vice News also did pieces with Vanity Fair. Like even the Clintons and the Bidens, there's connections with them, and paying off Vanity Fair and bribes, and like going in the office, having meetings with like the higher level, like CEOs and stuff like that, like at these businesses and stuff like that. It's a fucking joke. And people in the media that are actually heroes, like Aaron Bushnell, who's at Air Force, people in the mainstream media are still not talking about that, because he actually is a hero, and he's actually someone that has been speaking out clearly and not getting listened to either. And so he did the ultimate sacrifice. And I didn't want to share the video yesterday because it was a lot. But I'm going to share it. I already shared the tweet. So like, I was one of the first people to report this as well. And again, like, I don't get my information from like even what people consider to be independent journalists. I don't get my information from them either, right? Like, I'll look at their stuff and I'll share their content if it reinforces what I've already researched and investigated, but I can't out my like a lot of my contacts, and there's a lot of information I don't want to share, right? Like, to get to where I like, it's just too much research. But people are not covering this like they should be, and it's because we have people like Alice Hines. And you've seen a picture of her yesterday. She looks like a leftist extremist. And what she shares are hit pieces on people that are truthers and heroes, like Aaron Bushnell and Dr. Rashid Buttar. And that little soy vegan little bitch, right? Like, got him killed. And with her hit pieces. And Justin Ling got people, harmed and imprisoned. And again, like, these are people that have zero life experience. They've been entitled and privileged their entire lives. Probably get Starbucks on their way to work at like 10 a.m. and do like desk work. Like, maybe I'll do an Excel spreadsheet for a few hours. Lie to us, do like one little article a week, like which is bullshit, psyops. And that's their life. They don't do any hunting. They don't do any cooking, like they do nothing. They're not starting families, they're not raising families. They're not doing anything for their communities. They're not volunteering. They're just lying to us and getting people killed and going to other places in the world where they have no business being, like the Anarchapulco last year, just to create hit pieces and get people killed. Okay, Rob Skiba, more intellect in his fucking baby finger, in his pinky finger, than all of state-funded fucking propaganda media right now. And that's why people like me are out here risking our lives to speak out and expose the truth and actually give the fucking real news, because these fucking idiots, okay, they've had their time. They're all getting fired now. They're getting deplatformed because of people like me, and I'm happy about it. So every time I hear that Vice News is getting, like a deplatformed, like this to me is a fucking win for humanity. A win. Vanity Fair, win for humanity. CBC, that would be a win for humanity. Global News, fuck off. All of you all. Just fuck off already. And I'm just a little irritated because I'm triggered. I'm not going to lie. Because this stuff breaks my heart. I've been crying for a few hours, which is why I'm not wearing makeup or mascara or anything. Not even remotely to make this about me. I'm not. I'm just saying that this is also, like, I guess, just to let you know that this is heavy. So this is from Mautini. I posted this a little while ago. American veteran Lucas Gage breaks down facts about the late U.S. Airman Aaron Bushnell. And
because I really didn't pay attention to it the other day. Good morning, everyone. In this video, I want to address what happened.
And a comment was made yesterday when I brought up Aaron Bushnell, because again, yesterday morning I brought this up as well. And the point, the comment was made that someone that's very well educated, he was like, hey, I have, my brother's in the Air Force, and he hasn't even heard about this yet. And I didn't even think to mention it, but this is what I've been saying for years as well. This is why I started doing these videos, is because our chief of police in Canada, Chief Pete Slowly, and then these morons like Bill Blair and stuff like that, they're looking at the state fund PSYOPs propaganda media that's being paid for by the Bill Gates and the Soros of the fucking world, literally Bell funded Bell Media, and they all spew the same fucking garbage. And so we got people that are high levels of government, even Wayne Eyre, our chief of defense staff, that has full out fucking divisions and units, departments, agencies that at his disposal to actually look at data. It hire the best international security analyst in the fucking world, me, but no, keep on ignoring me and my emails and my phone and my phone calls and all that other stuff for Justin Ling, another leftist soy boy fucking loser that was Vice News and CBC as work experience, and that's where CSIS, our CSIS, equivalent to American Homeland Security, fucking CIA type people, declared the Emergency Act, which is our Canadian equivalent. It used to be called the War Measures Act. We've only declared it during World War I and World War II. And that's also when we fucking implemented the draft. So just to let you know the level of ridiculousness with Bill Blair, Marco Mendicino, Justin Trudeau, Chrystia Freeland, Melanie Joly, all these fucking idiots. They're actually the ones that were giving the narratives to their state-funded propaganda machines in order to lie to us. And CSIS used Justin Ling's article calling us anti-vaxxers and tinfoil hat wearers and and conspiracy theorists and fucking extremists, actual white supremacists, right wing extremists, you fucking name it, racists, all of this stuff. And they got their fucking data, counter-terrorist data, from a guy that doesn't even have a fucking security clearance and has never even done a boot camp or even a 1 week of a fucking a law enforcement course, or even did a ride along, let alone deploy to another fucking country on behalf of Canadians on an international fucking level. What's his security and defense background? CBC News. This is what I mean. This is the fucking insanity that we're living right now. And these people are getting their news from these fucking losers and not from people like me. But not for long. That's going to change.
In front of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., because I really didn't pay attention to it the other day. Many people were sending me pictures of a person who lit himself on fire, and I couldn't identify the uniform, so I didn't know if it was actually someone from the U.S. military doing it or some person who just put on hunting gear and just protested what was going on in Gaza. I didn't know. So I kind of brushed it aside, to be honest with you. And frankly, I've been so busy with other things, I didn't give the attention that this deserved. But this morning, and I mean early morning because I was up doing stuff, my friend Maram called me all the way from Moscow. He said, Lucas, did you watch the video? I said, actually, no, I didn't watch the video. I have all these people sending me
it yesterday.
A picture of this man who lit himself on fire. Is this legit? Is this actually someone? He's like, yes, this person was in the,
I shared the video yesterday. I stopped it at the point where he set himself on fire because people don't like people. I mean, it's up to you. It's not my place. I didn't want to share it because it is obviously traumatizing, devastating. And again, you never know, right? Like, even though I have an age restriction on my account, like I don't like kids. I don't want them seeing that.
In the U.S. Air Force.
And he was so calm, like not calm, but like saying like, anyway, I'll let him talk.
I said, wow, he really, okay. She's like, watch the video. In fact, she goes, watch the video while you're on the phone with me. So, all right, I'll watch the video. And I did. 3 minutes long or so. And I pressed play and I sat there and watched it while she listened. And basically this man says, what I'm about to do is an extreme form of protest. Now, we've seen this before when it comes to monks in the East who light themselves on fire to protest war in those regions. And so this American airman decides to do the same thing. He says, I'm going to engage in an extreme form of protest. And what's about to happen to me, he says, is nothing compared to what's happening to those people in Gaza. And this is what our leaders have made normal. And by leaders, he means traitors and scum, because that's what these people are.
People committing crimes against humanity.
And so he puts the camera down, as you all saw, and he lights himself on fire after dousing himself with gasoline. And the people who saw that in person didn't know what to do. One guy pulled out his gun, another person said, get the fire extinguisher, put him out. But the most shocking part is that while he was on fire, you would think he would just run around screaming, ah! No, he maintained the message, free Palestine, while he's on fire, free Palestine, free Palestine. And then eventually he couldn't do it anymore and he collapsed. Very clear why he did it. But the reaction to this is almost as shocking as what happened to him. As expected, and to no surprise to me, Jewish supremacists and Zionists mocked him.
Cowards, pussies.
Saying, oh, all the Hamas supporters should try this out. Others saying, well, he's a Hamas supporter, mass rape.
Yeah, I was saying that yesterday too. Like, it could be fake because there's a lot of false flags out there. And that's what I mean. It really can work on people and elicit emotional responses in people. So like, I'm not above this being something that was staged and planned. I'm not. Like, and so I would love to have like data information that would show me that it is. Like, what I mean by that is get like some like recordings or like from like outside angles of like media or embed, like even if it's like one or two people like doing like other shoots and or like finding like anyway, I just need like more proof. And because like, again, I'm not because it happens all the time. I share false flags all the friggin' time. Like even like for example, that Democrat lady that like that faked that like an illegal immigrant attacked her like with the fake blood and stuff like that. A lot of people believe that. Ben Shapiro, like when he like lied with those AI edited images of the burned babies, so many people even now think that that's true, and I was the first one to call him out on that. And if you look at my social media, you can see that. And so, and even with the hospital, right, like in Gaza, like a lot of people think that really happened and that there were like thousands of people died and this was Hamas and people are really not understanding the difference between Palestinians and Hamas, and also with Hamas how there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered about that event that happened on October 7th and these suspicions around it and the response from the Israeli government in all levels, and how there was embedded media like CNN and AP and Reuters, like so many other friggin' mainstream media outlets that were following these Hamas leaders. And where are the Hamas fighters? Where is the back and forth? Like, there's no fight. This is a genocide. I've been to war 15 years as an infantry officer, also served in the special forces, currently incorporated, and I've worked with the highest levels of fucking government. And I'm like, it's just like, I don't understand. But anyway, so it could be fake. Long story short, I just, I still want to share it. And that's the risk we have to take. And if it comes back where it is fake, then, you know, I would rather that. I would rather this guy be alive, because he's 25 years old, serviceman. And that breaks my heart, because I say I get triggered by this stuff because I know a lot of people that have committed suicide and or died in war because of false flag lies. And so that's why I would like to know the truth, because it does matter, especially now, right? We're not in a position in life where everything's fucking perfect, right? Where like we can like tolerate like a certain degree of corruption. We are at like reset levels now in like regarding humanity internationally, and I wish more people would take that seriously. And yeah. But I'll let this guy keep speaking, because again, I will reiterate, I don't know if this is true or not. Like, it wouldn't shock me either way, but it still gets to me because I am someone that has been impacted by this stuff. And so this is how they get us.
Ape supporter, so on and so forth. One person, Laura Loomer, fuck him.
She's a fucking idiot.
He's mentally ill.
And even if it's a fake video, it still actually shows you who people are, like how disgusting people are. Laura Loomer, I've been calling her out. Trump, he wants to fucking like have like Tulsi Gabbard possibly, you know, like in the running, and like she's also like a fucking shill, like a lobbyist, propagandist, warmonger, and she's never been to war. She's never, like, she's an entitled little Starbucks bitch, you know, that like sits in her little office, you know, like her home office, and like anyway, I just can't. I'm so fed up.
Fuck him.
Yeah.
Fuck him, huh?
Yeah,
he didn't do that for Hamas. And they all know he didn't do it for Hamas. That man took his life to send a message to the world on behalf of the men, women, and children who are being mass murdered by the Israeli offensive force. Because Israel is not defending itself. Israel's been on the offense for 75 years. And he doesn't want our tax dollars going to this offensive that kills tens of thousands of men, women, and children. Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you that the death toll of children alone is over 13,000. That's equivalent to 4 9/11s of children paid by your tax dollars. That's why this man did it. And combined, the death toll is 30,000 plus, which is equivalent to 10 9/11s. That's why this man did it. He did it for the people of Gaza, not Hamas. He didn't do it for the people who flew over the wall. He did it for the people who are being crushed under the rubble. That's why he did it. And these American Jewish Zionists and traitors are mad because he didn't die for Israel. If Aaron Bushnell lit himself on fire and said, "Free the hostages! Free the hostages! Free the hostages!" they would build a shrine to him in the middle of Tel Aviv. Hollywood already would be working on a script for a new movie to honor him. But because he died for the people of Gaza, they hate him for it. Because we Americans, we're supposed to die for Israel, no other country. So they have to mock him, just like they mock dead children. There's a Telegram channel with over 126,000 Israelis and Jewish supremacists that mock dead people all day. Babies even. I saw one that said when a little girl was dead, one less settler, one less terrorist. And that's what they're doing with him. Why is our greatest ally mocking this person, right? Our greatest ally, Israel. What do we even get supporting Israel? Can you name one thing that we as Americans get for supporting Israel? Nothing. Just empty platitudes. He died to send a message to the world that what's happening in Gaza is unacceptable. It is a genocide. And all these American Jewish Zionists and Zionists around the world are mad for taking his life for those people. That's why they're mad. And they mock him like every other victim that the Israelis have murdered in that genocide that's going on, sponsored by our tax dollars, promoted by our leaders, all of whom are traitors. Ladies and gentlemen, every day, 22 veterans take their lives. I don't know if Aaron intended to kill himself or not. Perhaps he just wanted to get severely burned and survive. I don't know, but he's dead now. He died to send a message to the world. And we're not going to let him die in vain, ladies and gentlemen. We are not going to let him die in vain. You know, ever since October 7th, a lot of people have been taking their masks off. A lot of people saying crazy shit. Even Kid Rock the other day.
I was just going to say that.
What he said on Joe Rogan was absolutely insane.
And what the fuck does he think? Like, literally, Kid Rock is saying that, like, kids should be dead and women should be fucking dead, kill literally civilians. He literally said that. Oh, civilians that fucking don't, like, arm up and fucking go after Hamas, which, by the way, even the website was created in Israel. And they are also, like, you have no idea the fucking links. Anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that. Fuck. I always like go on these goddamn tangents and I always forget what I'm fucking talking about. Anyway, it'll come to me, I'm sure, some other time.
So it's not the Aaron Bushnell.
Oh yeah, Kid Rock. Okay, so he expects like children and like innocent civilians that are being bombed, by the way, and hospitals attacked, schools attacked, attacked what's remaining, refugee areas, like places where people are going to flee, and they're getting attacked. And Kid Rock is saying, like, if like the little kids, if the 2-year-old, if the infant doesn't fucking pick up a fucking gun, where's the guns? And go after Hamas, then like they deserve to be fucking bombed. Like, this guy is a fucking idiot. Like, he's an idiot. And he's showing Tucker Carlson and all these people his fucking like mansion on a fucking mountain top and like all of his assets and resources. This is what I mean. You get dumb fucks like that end up as millionaires and billionaires because they're the ones dumb enough to spew this garbage, and they make so many people fucking fall for it too. It's so fucking disgusting. Kid Rock is an idiot. Sold out.
Professionals of the world
Disgusting.
Who are crazy. It's the Laura Loomers, the Kid Rocks, the Ben Shapiros,
Yep.
Everyone who supports Israel. And what they're doing.
Not about Israel either, because there's innocent civilians in Israel as well, just to be fucking clear. And there's Jews all over the world that, that they're getting unnecessarily targeted and exploited because of all this fucking shit that lobbyist pedo fucking freaks are committing. And I'll get into that as well in other videos, but not good people that are with the incest inside, the generational fucking like fucking each other's like the siblings and stuff like that, and the weird shit. Okay. And so like, not the strongest genes anymore in the pool. Okay. So like, let's just leave it at that and fucking say that these people, like, there's new blood that needs to fucking make the decisions now, because these people are clearly unwell.
Doing in Gaza. They're the lunatics. They're the ones who are insane. They're the ones who are traitors.
Netanyahu.
Because America gains nothing supporting Israel. We lose everything. Not only do we lose our troops, we lose respect.
Yep.
And we lose our resources.
Yep.
And that's what Aaron took his life to remind you of. That our unbreakable bond with Israel should be broken. For not just the sake of the people in Palestine, but also for Americans.
And Canadians and Australians.
And I agree with him. And it's sad to see that he took his life. But he's no coward or traitor.
Definitely not.
Or terrorist supporter.
We got these fucking pussies who again have never wanted for anything in their lives and have never been actually of service to anyone their entire lives, like Alice Hines and Justin Ling and these fucking idiots from the mainstream media. Entitlement and actually getting people killed even in their own community. So actually doing the opposite, like not helping their community. So even with Ottawa and stuff like that, CTV News, Ottawa, with these fucking losers I've been calling out for years. Like they're also people that should be in jail, first of all. And like, how the fuck do they still have jobs? And how the fuck are people in the communities not ghosting them and anyway.
No.
Peacefully calling them out on their bullshit. Like Leslie Roberts.
He's none of those things. He's a hero for standing up for the innocent people in Gaza. He gave his life for the greater good, for a higher cause. And he will not be mocked by the scum and the snakes who lurk among us, pretending to be patriots of this country, when in fact they are only shills for Israel.
It's not even for Israel. They're shills for fucking pedophile murderers, organ trafficking, human trafficking, drug trafficking murderers that are destroying the fucking planet. I know how this sounds. It sounds extreme. It's a fucking reality, though. That's what we're living in. This is what I've been saying for the last few years. I'm like, this is not a few decades ago. We are literally at fucking end times, or whatever you want to call it, if people don't wake up. Bonnie Henry, oh my fucking God. Don't even get me started on her too. Oh my God. Jail. So, and I will say as well, like, this is allegedly, but even with Ashley Babbitt, so much controversy with that. And, and people like literally even in the truther community do not even want to touch this, because they even say things like, her husband and kids are without a mother and all this other stuff. But like they could, also be part of, like, they're most definitely are likely part of this as well, or would be. And throughout history, there's been countless times of this happening where people fake their deaths or go into witness protection programs or whatever, and the family gets paid off, right? So like, look at their look at the father and the kids, look at their financial streams, look at their income, look at any financial activity since January 6th. Or actually even before that, obviously, as well. Look at, financial transactions, like the year prior to January 6, 2021 to present day. Do the research, do the investigations, and all that other stuff. And then look at the videos that I've shared. And specifically regarding that footage with her in it, Woo's News on BitChute is actually has the best overall breakdown of the riots and stuff like that, and the crisis actors and the scenes and the people that were plants and in beds and stuff like that, and with names and people that again, I'm doing the cops' jobs, literally arrest the real people that are actual criminals, not the people that were actually peacefully protesting, or even just happenstance just happened to be there and just wanted to follow an entertaining group, not thinking that they were going to be baited into committing, possible crimes. And it's just so frustrating that even with the Freedom Convoy and stuff like that, people just didn't see it for what it was. And even with that, I was the first one, or one of the first people that was tracking it coming to Ottawa, and was able to give people that early warning at all levels of government, including the special forces and parliamentary protective services, because they had no idea, because they weren't tracking, right? Because they're all getting their information from people at the top who they think they can fucking trust. Okay, that are morons, and they're looking at fucking CBC News to get their fucking intel, their intelligence briefs and everything like that. Like reference CBC and nothing else. Don't even do a fucking aerial photos. Don't do any reconnaissance. Don't do any of that stuff. Just call Justin Ling and get your fucking news from him. And so Aaron Bushnell, I don't recommend people do that. Obviously, I'm not promoting that at all, and that's why I didn't want to share the video yesterday, because, he died a hero in my humble opinion. I'm not saying that he didn't, and he definitely did it for good reasons, virtuous reasons, noble reasons, and someone again that has more fucking bravery and courage in his pinky finger if he actually committed this act, then everyone it combined internationally that has been spewing garbage now for generations. And so even with like people like Alice Hines, like be peaceful, but like just like message, email her, contact her team and stuff like that, and make it where she will never have a job in fucking news again. Right? Let her face be out there so that she wants to troll and do hit pieces on like when people are doing conventions or committees, you know, like make it where like she gets arrested for trespassing because she's trying to kill people, right? Like Dr. Rashid Buttar and countless others, she's getting people killed. Justin Ling got people's accounts frozen, bank accounts frozen, got people arrested, got fucking old indigenous grandmothers that were disabled and handicapped trampled on by RCMP. And I just can't. I just the amount of fucking disgusting people that are running the show, it just makes me want to vomit. And that's why at 2 a.m. I was up and why I'm doing a video before 5 a.m. in the morning on a Wednesday. So this is from The Hill, and this is what I mean. Like left and right are just painting this as like a death cult. Aaron Bushnell memorialized by death. Like what the fuck are these people talking about? So this is The Hill. Back out.
The self-immolation of active duty.
Yeah, looks like fucking he has soft little hands, baby hands, video games, never fucking worked a day in his life of an actual goddamn job. Let's see.
Air Force member Aaron Bushnell, in protest of the war in Gaza, has created controversy online from left and right. Now, Rising Friday's host Amber Duke zeroed in on this, posting on X on Monday. The bulk of the online left is rejecting the idea that an Air Force veteran who self-immolated for Palestine was mentally ill and are actually heralding him as a courageous hero. Literal death cult.
Meanwhile, another user on X said...
Yeah, and so that's what I mean, like unhinged people probably wrote that while she was drinking her little fucking Starbucks mocha latte chai, fucking extra foam, caramel, vanilla, espresso shot, whatever, right? And she probably would have fucking lost it on the fucking person giving her the coffee if they got even one of those fucking impossible items wrong, okay? But they'll slam actual heroes.
Their blood was boiling after MSNBC's Andrea Mitchell reported Bushnell was protesting the Israel-Hamas war and flashed
Israel-Hamas war, right? So they're not saying IDF Hamas war, government Hamas war. Like the messaging, it's Israel-Palestine, guys.
The suicide hotline during the news segment, suggesting that Bushnell's protest could be chalked up to mental illness. An anonymous
mental illness. Yeah. Okay. So she's fucking mentally ill. I'm just gonna stop with that. But I'm just telling you that left and right are painting him as anything but a hero. But they'll prop up trans mass shooters and rapists. George Floyd, right? They'll prop him up as a fucking hero, but like not Aaron Bushnell, who actually is one. So yeah, so here's some videos out on this. Anyway, I'm already running long on this video. I'll just go through my X feed again. You got people, Indiana State Medical Board decides to take no action against forensic pathologist Dr. Bamidele Adigbo, despite questionable, non-verified academic credentials from Nigeria, where he, I find it absolutely ridiculous that he would be given certification and subsequent medical license based on some phony piece of paper that he submitted himself. He's been accused of harassing her client for years and argues that if the Indiana Medical Board were to sanction Dr. Adigbo over a felony DUI conviction, this would add fuel to the fire. Dr. Adigbo has concluded many deaths with bizarre autopsy conclusions, such as suicide, accidental, and murder-suicide. And and reporting on the death of someone that was possibly murdered, calling it a suicide. So again, probably another person that's bought and paid for. Oh yeah, someone asked me if I'm on X. I do lives on X as well. I've been streaming on X for a few months at least. And look, 0 viewers because I am incredibly shadow banned as well. just letting this load. Very interesting video.
Choice.
As long as not everybody is vaccinated, nobody will be safe.
Normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population. So
get the fucking vaccine. You need to get vaccinated, and if you don't, you are going to die.
I know you're vaccinated. You're the smart ones, but you know there's people out there who aren't listening to God and what God wants. You know who they are.
The unvaccinated people.
My message to unvaccinated Americans is this.
If you are the unvaccinated, you are the problem.
You're the problem. Condemn them, shame them, blame them.
The only people that you can blame are the unvaccinated.
Frankly, we can't trust the unvaccinated.
They should not be part of polite society.
The lunatics who won't take COVID vaccines walking around lawfully unvaccinated? That's psychotic.
if you're willing to walk among us unvaccinated, you are an enemy. You have no right not to be vaccinated.
You don't.
And the thing is, like the people that are saying this and spewing this, again, these are lobbyists, paid propagandists. But I also know a lot about their personal lives, and a lot of these people are disgusting people. So not, and of course, like what do you expect? People that are willing to lie to people to actually get them to do things that could possibly kill them, or not procreate, not give life. They don't like you. They don't respect you. This idiot, he's not an astrophysicist. Like, I could literally debate him. I've tagged him on videos for years, and Lex Fridman. These guys are fucking morons that probably believe in what they're, like, the garbage that they're spewing, like the pseudosciences, especially, which really annoys me with these guys, because, like, I'm a scientist, and, like, my fucking knowledge on mathematics and science and astronomy and astrology blows their fucking knowledge out of the water on anything, and completely debunks their fucking theories that they keep on pushing. But, like, they actually believe this stuff, and they don't want to listen to people like me because I look like how I look, right? Especially being a woman, there's also a lack of respect because they're following these occult groups, these cults that are misinterpreting the sun and the moon and the luminaries, and thinking that because like the sun's magnetic radiating energy and heat is more dominant in the cosmos, in the sky, than the moon as a luminary, that it makes it a superior luminary. And when even with the moon, like, it's a cooling, self-illuminated, by the way, but it's a cooling gravitational feminine negative energy, like electrical energy, that also is greatly also needed in this cosmos in order to have that balance and healing and anyways, stuff like that, the inner work stuff. And so they misinterpret that. And all these mythological representations of the sun throughout history, like, have been represented by a man because it's a masculine energy, and the moon's been represented by a woman more often than not because it's a feminine energy, right? With that balance that's needed, a duality, well, the unified force experiencing itself dualistically. And so even with that, like, there's the equality with the energies and the harmony and the balance. And so guys like this, like, they abusers or predators will use excuses in order to gain power over people and authority over people, any excuse they can possibly use. And that's why I'm also saying that there's a lot of literature out there, including religious literature, that are by design. They're designed by people like this, where there's like subtle messaging within that is absolutely ingrained to have that subservient relationship, not only between men and women, but like the hierarchies of like putting Jesus Christ as a physical figure, and then with the lords and the hierarchy of like people within government, or people that are more liked by God, preferred by God. Like, this is giving people like more fuel to create division and stuff like that, and keep us exploited.
You have the right to contaminate someone.
You can't go around pointing a gun in somebody's face, which is what it is when people are unvaccinated.
you don't have a choice.
As long as not everybody is vaccinated, nobody will be safe.
Normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
And these people win. So like there's people, the whole Christian thing as well, or people believing in hell, the like the roots, like the bottom of the feet, the correlation between that and Saturn and Capricorn and Aquarius and the sun's path during the winter months when there's more death. And the sun dies in like from like transitioning from Sagittarius to Capricorn on the 21st of December in the northern hemisphere every single fucking year. And we've got people that are, you know, having beautiful, wonderful lives, stealing from us, exploiting us, and killing people, and literally thinking that they're better than us, literally being born and raised, groomed into thinking that they're literally better than us because of bloodlines or whatever. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Trust me on this. It's the same people, like, again, that also believe in like Satan and or Lucifer as an actual, again, like literal being. That's anyway. And they're winning. And so people think that they're going to hell when they die. They're not. They're like the energy transference. They're just accessing, they're just going back into their higher level consciousness being. That's all that's happening. Like they won the game, right? And so like there was zero accountability. So now this fucking world is still a fucking mess. Their families for generations to come that continue to control and exploit us. So again, like even with Jacob Rothschild, like well done. He lived a fucking criminal life, criminal fucking disgusting life. And now his family gets to like continue to exploit us, and like he was even like revered, like on his you know, like all the fucking media is like making him as a fucking hero, not Aaron Bushnell, but a fucking pedivore. You know, they'll prop him up, you know, even though he is literally responsible and his family is responsible for literally most of the harm and destruction in the world now. And we've had more advanced civilizations before that they're trying to bury as well.
So
get the fucking vaccine. You need to get vaccinated, and if you don't, you are going to die.
I know you're vaccinated. You're the smart ones, but you know there's people out there who aren't listening to God and what God wants. You know who they are.
The unvaccinated people.
Yeah. So fuck these people. So I'm gonna get into videos now because I'm just like I get frustrated with these people so much. They're so disgusting. Speaking of royalty,
King Charles has been implicated in a massive.
You give people power with that stuff. So even with the Stanford prison experiments, like there are people that, like fighting age males, like university educated men, were in their 20s. Were put into this this real experiment, Stanford prison experiment. Look at it yourself, and people were assigned either to be prisoners or guards, and they fully adopted those roles, right? And so like even with like the zodiacal signs, like a lot of people, you know, they'll blame being a bitch on being like a Pisces or whatever, you know what I mean? And even with that, like you're assigning that role on yourself, right? Like based on your representation, your interpretation of that zodiac sign, right? From like what you've read or what people have told you, and you're not doing the actual research and looking into like the root languages, looking at who created, you know, any of that stuff, like these interpretations. And this is also to like a method of control. There is a certain degree of influence with the luminaries above us. I'll always say that with the full moons and the new moon periods, especially, and how even like throughout the seasons, like there are differences that like where people develop just by virtue of like what season their mother was pregnant in, like the temperature fluctuations or changes, like when you were born, like what season was it in, like were you like more like freezing temperatures or was it hotter temperatures, and so did you have like exposure to the sun? Anyway, all of this stuff, but there's a lot of things to factor in, and there very much is also like, again, it's a divine clock. And so like, and even with like, when you put the cardinal signs, when you connect them, it makes the cross. And then when you connect the fixed signs, that makes the X. So it's all just interpretation of astronomy and astrology and the sun's path through the zodiacal belt. Okay. There, now it's up. So this is a good representation of an accurate clock, in my humble opinion, of the divine clock, because it actually has it where like for the clocks that we use is what I'm talking about, where we have like 12 a.m. and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 a.m. But this is actually 6 p.m. and this is actually 6 a.m. So we're going down this way. Oh yeah, it's going down this way. So starting at 6 a.m. So that's 12 a.m., 6 a.m., 12 p.m., and 6 p.m. So this is when things are in balance also, right? Like we're always trying to achieve balance, but during the spring and fall equinox, we have it where there's equal amount of day and night. And this is where we see like the sun's path is like near perfect through the zodiacal signs, rising in the east, setting in the west, traveling 15 degrees every hour. So 30 degrees every 2 hours through the zodiac signs. And so starting with Aries at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9, 10, 11, 12. So even the time of day that you were born, like they're like the luminaries above, they move. And as above, so below. So you have like 12 hours above, you have 12 hours below. So even with that, and then, or if you want to split it this way, you have 12 hours this way, 12 hours this way, left and right, east and west, whatever you want to call it. And then 12 times 12 is 144. So you even have that connection as well with 144. And also interesting that I wanted to note that like you have Capricorn, Aquarius that are ruled by Saturn, as seen here. People want to say Uranus as well. That's all the new school stuff. Like I'm not as much into the new stuff as I am into the like the older archived data that I've looked at and books and literature, because like I feel like that is more authentic. And I think there's a lot of propaganda and psyops going on, you know, directly and indirectly, that are really making people not connect the dots like I have. And so even with so you have Aquarius and Capricorn, and even in my graph I have them connected together, correlated with Saturn, the root chakra, and that's when when the sun passes the tropic of on the tropic of Capricorn, we have the winter months, and also that are in pairs as well, which is interesting. So you have the as above, so below, so directly opposite from well, I would say Capricorn and Aquarius. You have Gemini and Cancer. When you have the sun at the lowest point or further away in the sky, and this is when the sun is closest on the Tropic of Cancer, closest to us in North America, and the sun is highest in the sky. And then when we're in balance as well, even during the day, I say that the sun tells you the time of day, the moon tells you the time of month, and the luminaries tell you the time of year, through the seasons. But you've got Cancer and Leo, these ruled by the sun and moon. Electricity, magnetism, masculine, feminine, radiating, gravitating, positive, negative, and they're opposite. And then also again, when like this is around the 12 p.m. Also, when you have the sun at the highest point in the sky during the day, and then as you go into 6 p.m., that's usually when the sun sets. And that's usually like as the sun's entering into Libra when we're in balance. And then at 12 a.m., that's when the sun is furthest away from us during the day, and that's like 12 a.m. And so I just wanted to like bring that stuff into this as well. And then you've got the pairs, Gemini, Virgo. So you've got, these are ruled by individual luminaries. These are ruled by Saturn. So also with that as above, so below. And I do believe that Saturn is the furthest away from the sun. And the moon being the closest. And then even on my chart with the connections, I have it where after the sun, you've got it where like it's Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, like outwards. So Jupiter, and then you've got the Mars connection with Aries and Scorpio, like I've mentioned before as well, and they're also like sort of opposite from each other. And then with Venus, you've got it with Taurus and Libra. And again, that's even on my chart with the connection as well. And then Virgo and Gemini connection. And so I hope this is interesting to people. It probably isn't. Oh, someone said interesting. I don't get to see my comments when I'm looking at the videos, or the photos, I mean. And so at least there was that reassurance. Okay, so now onto the negative stuff again. I'm trying to break it up because the stuff is heavy. And so this is from Stanton Cree 420 again. King Charles and close friends.
Massive decades-old paedophile ring at an elite British boarding school. King Charles has been implicated in a massive decades-old paedophile ring at an elite British boarding school, according to revelations by a former student and whistleblower who's blown the lid off the horrific scale of the elite's chosen vice. According to an award-winning journalist who attended the school as a boy, children at the elite school are routinely beaten, harassed, raped, and driven to suicide. Inevitably, with paedophilia, all roads lead to Rome. In this case, Rome's latest incarnation, the British royal family, who, in the words of the journalists, regularly visits Aldenham School to feed on children. Before we dive in, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and join the People's Voice Locals community to join our incredible community, support the channel, and gain access to uncensored content. Chris Stevens is an award-winning journalist who has also excelled in the fields of architecture and design. The man has had a successful life and career, and now he is risking it all to blow the whistle on the corrupt and depraved British royal family. Aldenham School is run by the self-declared worshipful company of Brewers, an ancient and shady group who take young children to initiation ceremonies at Brewers Hall, where, according to Stevens, they are abused and tortured. Brewers Hall in Hertfordshire just so happens to be a stomping ground for King Charles, with reports detailing visits by Charles and his friends Jimmy Savile and Lord Mountbatten. But more on those two later. Charles has been photographed at Brewers Hall in recent times in connection with the boarding school. According to Stevens, who now goes by the name of Phoenix Caspian, the British royal family led by Charles are unable to resist raping anything that smells like a child. Already, one Aldenham teacher has been jailed for his rape of a student, and 2 others have incriminated themselves by openly gloating about abusing hundreds of children in a career retrospective written in Aldenham School's official magazine. What is going on here, and why has this been allowed to continue for centuries? As Stevens explains, the school is part of the elite's grand traumatic repetition structure, and unfortunately there are similar schools and institutions all over the world. Children are tortured by the school and are then provoked by systematic corruption to reenact that torture on younger students. As Stevens says, it's a vivid example of blind traumatic repetition, but it gets even worse. After this quick break, we'll explain why paedophilia is the elite's chosen vice, and what we must do to protect our children from this 9,000-year-old paedophile cult. But first, an important word from our sponsor. Are you interested in reaching a large and growing audience? The People's Voice offers a unique opportunity to promote your brand to an audience of millions of engaged viewers. If you would like to sponsor or advertise on our show, please email sponsor@thepeoplesvoice.tv. As the people of the world rise up against the evils of the global elite, they are becoming increasingly desperate to ensure they stay in control and achieve their goals. According to Charles, we need a vast military-style campaign to usher in the agenda of the WEF.
Here we need a vast military-style campaign to marshal the strength of the global private sector. With trillions at its disposal, far beyond global GDP, and with the greatest respect, beyond even the governments of the world's leaders.
This should not come as a surprise because Charles has been working to usher in the agenda of the globalists his entire life. He is descended from a long line of European tyrants after all. According to NPR, Prince Charles said during a 2011 interview, "Transylvania is in my blood. The genealogy shows that I'm descended from Vlad the Impaler." In case you need a quick history refresh, during the 1400s, Vlad III, commonly known as Vlad the Impaler or Vlad Dracula, was the Prince of Wallachia, modern-day Romania. According to NBC, his father adopted the last name of Dracul, meaning dragon, which meant Vlad's last name became Dracula, son of the dragon. By all accounts, he was an extremely violent ruler.
Astrology is mentioned 9 times in the King James Version of the Bible. Astrology was created by God. And people don't want to hear that, like astronomy, astrology, this is all our, like the divine clock. Like this is like the belt that the sun travels through, the zodiacal belt, like the 12 signs. And even in the Last Supper with the 12 disciples or apostles, like that also represents that journey through this, like the sun's journey through that zodiacal belt, or the and that's what astrology is, right? Like the 12 zodiac signs, or the 12 Chinese signs, or Babylonian, or Egyptian, or Sumerian, or Mayan. All throughout history, there's different representations of the images, right, of the signs, or images or signs, of the constellations, or whatever you want to call it, the cluster of luminaries that the sun travels through, and not deviating more than 23.5 degrees latitude or longitude, north or south, on its path, which also proves that this is a flat, non-rotating Earth, and that the luminaries above are rotating in a contained environment, and likely sunluminescence, using what we're calling the elements in a plasma form, like a gas turning into a degas form, or whatever you want to call it, into a spectrometer type container, and what's causing these luminaries to light up, just like Tesla's lamp lights up different fluorescent light bulbs and things like that. So that's what astrology is. is literally just looking at the sun's path, observing it through, and then as it travels through the astrological signs or images, you'll notice that it moves through again, like the Tropic of Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn, and it shows like it alters, or not, doesn't alter it. Like there's changes in the seasons based on that path, based on that sun's flight path and the moon's flight path and the luminaries. And I'll get into that in the number file stuff I'm gonna share as well. But how people represent astrology, right? So people that just like people, how they represent Lucifer or Satan, and or like what they consider to be demonic possessions, or like considered to be like, you know, elite people or like elite bloodlines. When people like believe that or convince themselves that that's their reality, they will actually, like, again, people are so easily fucking like brainwashed, not brainwashed, but like convinced to do things that they wouldn't necessarily do if given an excuse or a reason or assigned a role. And so, oh yeah, it's super arbitrary. Yeah. So so tropical astrology, like our signs with like the goat and the human, for the different signs, it's different in other countries. And so like it's just how people interpreted like those like constellations, those clusters of stars. And that's also like, so when people yeah, so anyway, I could go on a tangent with that, but I'll let him talk.
Genealogy shows that I'm descended from Vlad the Impaler, so I do have a bit of a stake in the country.
Britain and the Commonwealth now have a sovereign who's descended from the tyrant who dipped his bread in the blood of his impaled victims. So perhaps it's not surprising that Charles is close friends with the depraved Klaus Schwab, who is cut from the same degenerate cloth as the French Charles is used to keeping. Prince Charles was best friends with Britain's most notorious paedophile, Jimmy Savile, regularly hosting him at royal estates and using him.
I've shared videos on Jimmy Savile, disgusting videos of him even recording conversations he's had
him as a sounding board for advice. Charles even asked Savile, who raped hundreds of children over the course of decades in the public eye, to write an etiquette guide to be followed by the Queen. King Charles's great uncle and mentor, Lord Mountbatten, was also accused of raping an 11-year-old boy in a Totorius children's home in the 1970s, adding weight to allegations that the British royal family practiced child sacrifice and ritualistic paedophilia as one of their ancient rites and customs. What are the chances of Charles and Andrew both being best friends with the most notorious international paedophiles of their generation? And what are the chances of King Charles's mentor also being accused of raping young boys? How many times can these revelations be swatted aside and declared a coincidence? Now that Savile and Mountbatten are dead and Charles's disgraced brother Andrew can't keep company with Jeffrey Epstein anymore, Charles is spending his time working on ushering in the globalist vision of the New World Order, with all of the anti-human evil that it entails. But it gets worse. Those at the top of the pyramid can't leave anything up to chance. So instead of relying on just money to corrupt and control politicians, leaders, musicians, pundits, and anybody with a big audience, they turn to horrific methods of control, like the torture described by the whistleblower at Alderman School. Make no mistake, this is a worldwide globalist criminal enterprise.
Yeah, he thinks he's fucking
designed
royal.
to ensnare.
Like, he literally, in his own fucking brain, thinks that he is like superior to like me, even, you know, and literally because like he's fucking had an entitled, privileged life and did weird, fucking creepy things because he was allowed to do it. And if you look at my resume, even though I've been through a lot of fucking hard stuff in my life, I would still rather live what I like, free, knowing what I know, than live that fucking life. And so, no, you're not better than me. You're not better than people that are fucking watching this fucking stuff. In fact, you are significantly worse. You are lower than fucking low on our fucking heels.
The young and vulnerable and destroy their souls before they join the elite ranks of the corrupt and debased. Every world leader and most entertainers and news broadcasters are compromised in this way, meaning they are all doing the bidding of their masters at the top of the pyramid. This bidding equates to corrupting all minds, sexualizing children, transhumanism, and extreme depopulation. For those who survive the planned cull, they will be rewarded with global tyranny and slavery for the underclass. We know exactly what they have planned for us because they can't stop gloating about it.
The big political and economic question.
Look how little he is. Him and his husband can fuck off, right? Like jail. Your books are shit. Your shit. You have no idea what you're talking about. Like, has anyone here read Homo Deus or Sapiens? I had to read it because, again, you have to know your enemy and understand how their brain works. And this guy doesn't have a fucking brain. This guy's too busy fucking being drugged out, fucking doing orgies with his fucking husband. Too busy doing that shit then he probably knows nothing about fucking the reality of the earth. Like I bet you he's a globie. Unless he was
21st
told.
century will be, what do we need humans for? Or at least, what do we need so many humans for?
And this is also the reason why I'm bringing up the fact that he's a homosexual man is because him and his partner cannot have kids. Okay, and so there's an element there that people need to look at and realize that he's really, like, especially as a man, because like men, again, like we do have differences, even the way we think to varying degrees and act, right? And so like men are generally speaking like more on the right hand side of the behavioral spectrum, and could be like are the ones still now, although it's like women are becoming more masculinized on purpose, but they're the aggressors, more physical violence, more like rape, murder. Like these are still largely men that commit these acts and think about things and not people. And women are generally speaking more interested in people because we are the creators of life. We are the more vulnerable when we are pregnant, and like the more empathetic, considerate, compassionate, and like again, the people that can balance that overly masculine energy that can really overpower and dominate entire fucking civilizations, clearly, right? And so like this little fucking numbnut is not looking at humans the way he should be. He should be. I bet you they are too, right? Like, yeah. And there's people within government that love this guy, and then this is why I read these books as well, because I'm like, what the fuck is that, like, the hype all about? And I was just like, wow. I'm like, he sounds smart, which is dangerous. Which is like, these are exactly the type of people, like these are the people at the top, like these Rothschild types, these Rockefeller types, Gates types, the Trudeau types, the Freeland types. They get people that are really, really smart, way smarter than them, to do their dirty work for them. And however
do you
possible,
have an answer in the book?
Whatever way possible.
At present, the best guess we have is keep them happy with drugs and computer games.
We need your help dismantling a 9,000-year-old.
How about get people to like plant trees and do farming and agriculture? This is what I mean. Like, stay home and play video games and join the Matrix, join the metaverse. No, go out, get a fucking job, especially if you're a man. Like men, like physical work, right, is what a lot of men want to do, anyways. And anyway,
Satan worshipping pedophile cults. This evil can't be allowed to continue hiding in plain sight. Here at the People's Voice, we are determined to continue exposing the elite, but we can't do it ourselves. Subscribe to the channel and join the People's Voice Locals community to support the channel, join our amazing team, and gain access to exclusive content. I hope to see you there.
Okay, so now on to so even the Queen and King Charles, even in their visits to Canada decades ago, there's still Indigenous people in the Yukon and BC and other areas of Canada that want to know what happened to their children after visits, right? And there's even like full out like multiple children, like even 9 to 12 children that were also kidnapped around the same time that these people were visiting. And this is not something that was reported, right? And this is also something that law enforcement, because of, like, it was a much lower population in these areas at the time, more austere remote locations, and no one really cared about or asked questions about Indigenous people at that time, because a lot of people were actually fucking racist because of what people like Justin Trudeau and his father were pushing also. Like, again, even though this stuff predates their dictatorships. But so I'm going to share what I believe this world to be, and the connection with the Fibonacci spiral, and even like the friggin' names of people too. It's so obvious, like of people who are paid propagandists and not. Whoopi Goldberg, Karen Johnson, or whatever her friggin' name is, like these are all fake names that they use, which also like show their cards, right? Like, and so even with Santos Bonacci, I don't necessarily believe. First of all, I don't think that's his real name. I really don't. And if it is, like, interesting. And so that would also lead me to believe that, like, in his family, there are people that have known the occult stuff, and it's been passed down. So not something that was just like passed on to him and put on his lap, because like even with Filios Bonacci, sounds very similar to Bonacci, Santos Bonacci and stuff like that. So I don't think there's an accident with that name as well. And the fact that he's one that is teaching a lot about astrotheosophy. Anyway, that's just my thoughts. Like if it's his real name and it's always been, and he's the one that figured out astrotheosophy and no one in his family did, it would surprise me, but it'd be fair. You know, I don't buy it. And Ezra Levant in Canada for Rebel News, like there are people that are extremists in their own lives that are actually paid propagandists of Rebel News, and they're making the news, like the journalism team, look really, really bad when they have good people like David Menzies that are part of the newscast, and Brad Kratchik and you Giulioni or whatever her name is, Tamara Uglioni. I really wish I knew how to spell her last name properly, but oh yeah, I don't know if you asked me that before, but like yes, like Santos, like I don't think so. I don't know, like I just get a bad vibe, and that shouldn't be enough to to make an assessment on someone. But like even with some of the stuff he pushes, like the veganism and talking about people like that eat meat as carnivore, like flesh eaters, and like all of this stuff, like this is propaganda psyops, and whether they know it or not. And so he could be propped up because like he's really not sharing all the truth, and there's like connections that he's not making, or he's paid to do that, right, intentionally. And that's why with Old World Florida as well, like he has a lot of good content, but he's also incorrect on a few big things as well. One of them being the whole freaking like saying that we're all supposed to be fruitarians and that Jesus Christ was a fruitarian, when first of all he's a representation of the Son, and the Son isn't a fucking fruitarian. And even with fruits being in season and stuff like that, there's only a certain area on this fucking flat Earth plane where you can get like fruit like throughout like all the seasons, right? And it's definitely not fucking Canada, especially with all the like fuckery that's going on with the atmosphere and all the molecules and particles that they're spewing, and the impact of things like CERN and HARP also on things. But the biggest thing is the shredding of the trees, like the shredding of the fucking trees. You're a moron if you're doing that still. I'm sorry to say it, but like if you're not doing it to like heat your homes and stuff like that, or like building materials, like I'm not saying that, but like if you are just shredding fucking trees, especially on heritage sites and churches and stuff like that, like what is wrong with you? Like what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? That is the biggest fuck you. I don't care about Canada or Canadians or its future that you can possibly do is shredding a tree. It's literally, I fuck you, fuck your family, fuck future generations. I don't care about you or your health or anything. That's what that is.
3. Now you have a guess what's coming next.
Anyway, wow. I'm like I'm salty because again, I get triggered when especially with Aaron Bushnell, like it breaks my heart, it's soul crushing. And so it just gets me very negative, but I try to get out of it. So anyways, this is from Number File. Perfect shapes in higher dimensions.
3. Good. Yes. As a matter of fact, it continues to be 3, 3, 3. And you wonder, this is really a strange sequence. You know, what are we going to do with this? Well, this is the number of regular polytopes that exist in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and all higher dimensions. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Regular polytopes and then dimensions. A polytope is just a more general term that generalizes from 2-dimensional polygons to 3-dimensional polyhedra, and everything higher we call a regular polytope. That sounds a little scary, so let's start with something much simpler, the platonic solid. So here is a tetrahedron. That's the first platonic solid. Next, we have simple cube. Third one, octahedron, made from 8 equilateral triangles. Number 4, 12 faces, the dodecahedron. This one has 12 pentagons. And finally, a real jewel,
icosahedron.
The icosahedron.
Icosahedron.
Made out of 20 equilateral triangles, and this is probably a Swiss crystal.
Of course.
And here is another view of an icosahedron with a pattern like MC Escher. Could you show to a non-mathematician in an intuitive way why there are exactly 5 platonic solids?
Spoiler alert, I'm going to show you my interpretation of why I believe that a sphere or a globe, I don't like saying sphere because a sphere can also be like a half a globe. A sphere could be like a even a triangle that, you know, like rotates 360 degrees. And so these are all things that that people misinterpret or misrepresent. And so, but I will say that a sphere, no, sorry, I just freaking said why I wouldn't say that. a globe, a ball, a globe is not a solid. It's not a solid shape.
Not more and not less. Well, one way to do
Here's
it
why I think
is to look at the surface of these objects. So this dodecahedron, for instance, is made out of regular pentagons.
And fun fact, I have dodecahedrons like downstairs, like with glass and stuff like that. I've been so fucking in this for years.
All of these platonic solids are made out of regular polygons. So probably we should step down a dimension and look at what regular polygons are possible. Simplest one would be a regular equilateral triangle. Then we can do a square. Then
totally agree with that as well. Yeah, and so I'm not judging people that are vegans or vegetarians or fruitarians. So I don't want people to think that I am judging that. Just like these people that I'm naming have literally insulted people who eat meat. It's on their channel regularly, and it's insulting, right? Because like in the truther community, for people that have so much good information, like they're getting people against me, right? And like people that are attacking me and trolling me because of what they're sharing, right? Because a lot of people admire them and respect them, and rightfully so. But when they say things like that, it really does like muddy the waters, and it's really like, and it's not coming from like an authentic, genuine place, in my opinion, or they're not realizing or understanding the bias in it, and so like that was my only point with that, is like they're calling us like flesh eaters and like disgusting like murderers, all of this stuff. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like this is so extreme. and they're giving biblical references too for their reasons, and I'm just like, even with that, there's like they're misinterpreting the Bible, because even with Cain and Abel and that story, who are the sons of fucking Adam and Eve, like God's most preferred sacrifice was meat, and there's reasons behind that as well. But again, like misinterpretation of the Bible also leads people to be divided. And with meat, I like I've said this for years as well. We need to start fucking consuming less, right? Just like Gary Golding says, like the Tarzan of Los Angeles, he's been saying it for years. We need to consume less, and that includes meat. We are now more overfed, not underfed, believe it or not, internationally, which is alarming. And we're now dying more because of being overfed than underfed as well. And people are just wasting meat products, and like it just breaks my freaking heart. Like people are the things that you could do even with the bones, like to use as soups and broths, that the people are throwing out and or not giving it to their animals, or to like and just like they can compost remaining food and stuff like that to stop with the waste. And even with grocery stores, like with all the waste that they like with the stuff that they throw out, it's just too much. And so we should be a lot more mindful of what we consume and how we consume it, and have the animals have good lives and be treated well before they're sacrificed for meals. And so even with my family, with the free range, chickens and stuff like that, like to eat eggs like that, and not chickens that take 3 weeks to grow when they should be taking 3 months or more, and filled with like antibiotics and steroids and all these friggin' chemicals, and like never even getting to see grass their entire lives. That breaks my heart. And and there's people within cities and suburbs that like have the audacity to slam farmers when I've said this before, like people that I know that are in rural areas have treat their animals way more humanely than people that I know in cities and suburbs that barely take their animals out. They put them in cages for hours on end while they're at work and stuff like that, and like take them barely on a friggin' walk on a sidewalk for like 10 minutes of their friggin' day. And anyway, there's just so much I can talk about too. But bone broth, very healing. I have that often, and hydrolyzed collagen and soups, and fasting is super healthy, and especially during new moon or full moon periods, because that is healing. Like the body goes into autophagy, and then when you fast for a certain period of time, your body starts like going or eating or consuming like the inflammatory or the inflamed cells before healthy cells. And so again, there's so many people that even for like advocated for possible cancer treatments and stuff like that. Like again, like I'm not a doctor or anything like that, and so like just like fasting can absolutely heal as well. And I'm going on all these tangents, but even with the branch chain amino acids that we require to be healthy, like these are not found anywhere else, unfortunately, than in like animal product. And but I don't judge people who don't eat it for their own reasons, ethical reasons especially. I'm not judging that, right? But when you are actively with millions of viewers, you know, like slamming people that do, it's again, like it's just causing unnecessary division, and it's just, I don't know.
We can do a pentagon, then we can do an hexagon, and so
So
on.
interesting.
And if you go all the way to infinity, we end up with something that
Just
looks
gonna
like
back
a
up a bit.
circle. To show to a non-mathematician in an intuitive way why there are exactly 5 platonic solids, not more and not less. Well, one way to do it is to look at the surface of these objects. So this dodecahedron, for instance, is made out of regular pentagons. And so all of these platonic solids are made out of regular polygons.
Yeah.
So probably we should step down a dimension and look at what regular polygons are possible. Simplest one would be a regular equilateral triangle. Then we can do a square. Then we can do a pentagon. Then we can do an hexagon, and so on. And if you go all the way to infinity, we end up with something that looks like a circle. So there are infinitely many of these regular polygons in 2 dimensions. So really, the sequence up here, it has another character before the 5 if you go to 2 dimensions. And what's that? It's not an 8. It's infinity. And if you really want to go to the extreme, what about 1 dimension? Well, there's just a line segment, nothing else. What about 0 dimension? Well, it's just a point, nothing else. But now 1, 1, infinity, 5, 6, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. That's a really weird sequence, you know. And I guess that would really confuse people. Okay, all the platonic solids are made from one of these regular polygons. And so how many different ways can we use these regular polygons to make one of these solids? Start with the equilateral triangle and ask, how can we make platonic solid out of that one? Well, we need a minimum of 3 of those to be put around the corner in order to make a valid corner in.
So they're gonna, in this video, you're gonna see like a lot of like numbers and angles and stuff like that that are gonna really connect things with gematria and numerology and stuff like that as well. I just wanted to go on this bandwagon here as well, because there's a lot of good comments coming out of the talking about health stuff. Yeah, like so people that I know on farms like that, like it's my sister too, right? Like she has horses, and we had animals for subsistence and moderate gardens growing up as well. And even here, like I'm in a log cabin in the woods. Like as soon as it becomes season, I'm going to be planting a friggin' garden again, and looking at getting. Oh yeah, methylene blue. Yeah, I have that actually, and so I do. Yeah, methylene blue is good. I have it downstairs. I think for supplementation, I think that Shilajit is good. Iodine, I'm a huge fan of that, like especially in its natural form or even in a powdered organic form. Iodine, because that does assist with cognitive functioning, and there's a lot of scientific studies that I've looked at that do prove it, and it also heals and so iodine for sure. Shilajit. If I'm having inflammatory issues with my heart or lungs or things like that, I would take things like quercetin or nattokinase, and I've shared that stuff for years. Vitamin D, absolutely, you know, and selenium. Like there's things that that you could get in like things like bone broth or like hydrolyzed collagen and your food. But because we're so deficient in our micronutrients in our regular diet, even unfortunately, even in farms now with our organic food, it's still like it's not near as much as of the vitamins and minerals that we used to have, right? Because like everything's getting friggin' poisoned. I know that sounds dramatic, but like, and so we should be supplementing more no matter what, because even if we're eating really healthy, we're still not getting the same vitamin and mineral content that we'd get 100 years ago, for example. And so like that's another reason why we need to like unfuck like what's going on with like with the soil and the shredding of the trees and like shutting down small farms and businesses and shutting down the ability to do agriculture, because even April 1st in Canada they're going to be increasing the carbon tax by 23%, and then there's digital sales tax coming in the fall. Like I'm telling you, there's criminals that are further trying to steal more money from Canadians. And they think by calling it taxes and interest rate that we don't see it as like what it is. It's theft. But other supplements, like vitamin D, and also getting out during sunrise and sunset to actually do sun gazing, grounded on earth, highly recommended. And if you could plant your palms and your heels on the earth, on soil or like something that's not concrete or plastic or whatever. This again with the electrical magnetism, it it really assists with healing like chronic inflammation and stuff like that as well. When you walk on the grass too, there's so many different like nerve endings and stuff like that in your feet that can also be massaged and like circulation, like assist with circulation as well. And with the grounding, like I was saying, because we are electrical magnetic beings. And yeah, there's so many things that people can do to, but vitamin D deficiency, like that is something that is really harming people now. Like we are not outside as much as we used to be. Especially white people, because it does take us longer to absorb. Especially Black people, the opposite. Black people, like especially in areas where it's colder and you're less exposed to the sun. It just takes longer for them to get like the appropriate amounts of vitamin D into their bodies, and so they should be supplementing with vitamin D. And so I was saying that since the very beginning of the pandemic as well. I was saying that there are people of color that are going to be more adversely impacted by vitamin D deficiency, which can also impact them like regarding like flus or colds or any injuries, because I believe it to be another hormone and not like a vitamin. I think that vitamin D like is absolutely critical for us to have at balanced levels. And GMO, I like don't touch it as much as you can. Genetically modified stuff like with chemicals, I would try to avoid that as much as possible. Again, like no one's perfect, but even with things like aspartame, like that is literally human and E. coli feces, and it's readily available. And other like natural sweeteners even have like fetal cell, flavoring in it, and people are like not looking at the fucking research, right? Like this is stuff that's not good for you, right? Like this causes inflammation, like E. coli. There's people are recalling products all the time over E. coli, but we're drinking E. coli piss or shit. I mean, like, and human feces, like what the fuck? And yeah, it's just inflammatory to our bodies. Like we're supposed to be eating more natural, raw, organic foods, and less of the chemical stuff. And so that's another thing too, that these people within like cities are attacking farmers and attacking people that have animals and stuff like that while they're eating, like GMO products, like cereals with like dyes and other chemicals in them, and drinking, I can go on a list with this stuff, but there's a lot of hypocrisy. Even with GMO plants and stuff like that, without having the seeds, that's another way of having it where we're not able to grow our own food, right? Like if you can take like organic fruits or vegetables, like you can actually get the seeds from outside or inside, depending on where they are, and regrow, like grow your own fruits and vegetables. So like that's another reason to do the GMO. It makes it where and seedless. There's a reason for it. And even with the coating on the exterior of a lot of these like products that are coming in now as well, like unless you really try to wash that shit off in like soap and water, like hot water, because it's like a wax consistency that's really hard to get off. Like that is also like not good for us, right? Like these are all chemicals that inflammatory, and they also disrupt our ability to our cognitive functions, and causes hormonal imbalances. It dysregulates like your hormone levels, like I already said. But yeah, there's just so many reasons why like you should try, if you can, to eat as unprocessed and as organic as possible.
3 dimensions. And if you put 3 of these triangles around a shared vertex, then the bottom is also an equilateral triangle. That would give us a tetrahedron. Okay, so next we can try to put 4 equilateral triangles around the shared vertex, and we can bring them together and make a 4-sided pyramid. And remember, to make it regular, all of the dihedral angles here have to be exactly the same. So that means that the bottom now is a perfect square. We can take this square pyramid and match it with an identical square pyramid. So that makes the second platonic solid, the octahedron. Now we can try to take 5 of those and put them around a vertex. And this makes this 5-sided pyramid. So it's completely symmetrical. If we continue forming these kind of corners and try to sort of wrap it around, will this actually get a closed surface? Will this actually end up in something useful? Well, we know we have this icosahedron. Okay, but if you have to really figure out whether it works, it takes a little thinking. You can see on top here, we have this 5-sided pyramid. So we can take one of these 5-sided pyramids. We cannot put this one just up on a mirror. We can take another one, but the 2 have to be rotated against one another by 36 degrees. And if you do that, then in between, you can see there's a triangle strip. This triangle's going up, down, up, down, up, down, essentially forming a 5-sided antiprism, adding 10 more triangles. It's kind of beautiful that indeed this surface does close and result in number 3 Platonic solid.
And what about 6 triangles?
Oh, good question. Glad you asked that. So let's try to take 6 triangles and put them together, and we get a wonderful, nice hexagon here. So unfortunately, it's totally flat. And so
that's why you can't have like the hexagon, the 6-sided hexagon in 4D. And so like that's also interesting as well with like the beehives and stuff like that. How he's right, like it fills out the space like the most efficiently and the most effectively and the most efficiently and effectively, but on this flat plate of inertia, like there's just so many connections as well. And with that,
but this does.
So the 5-sided figure would be. Anyway,
it doesn't really curve, and it doesn't help you to make some kind of closed object. You can make a kitchen floor with that one. Now, if you go to 7 triangles, they don't even fit into the plane. It's kind of get the warped chip, and that is no good. So we're done with triangles. So now we have to go to squares. Fold them up. So basically 3 squares around the shared vertex leaves of an opening of 90 degrees. And we forcefully try to close this opening, and now we have a valid 3D corner. If you take a contraption like that, and match it on the backside with exactly the same contraption, then you get a cube made out of 6 squares. And I know what you're going to ask next. What about 4 squares? Well, glad you asked.
Same problem, guys.
Same problem here. So we can put 4 squares together, and they make either a complete flat, or if you were to somehow bend it in weird ways, then not all the dihedral angles at all the edges would be the same, and so it would be a regular corner that's unuseful. So we're done with squares. We can put 3 pentagons together and form a nice 3D corner. And again, the question arises, does that really close if you continue the process? And the easiest way to see it is to take 1 pentagon and put 5 pentagons around it, completing 5 of these corners. And this makes this nice kind of salad bowl. And now if we put another salad bowl like that on top of it, again, rotate by 36 degrees. So
rotate by 36 degrees. And then, and so even with that, with like there's so many things that are mind blowing. So 6 times 6 is 36. Okay. The 66th day of the year during a leap year, March 6th, I want to say. So then you've got that 36, 3-6, March 6th. And on a non-leap year, it's March 7th. So you've got the 37, which is also a sacred gematria number as well. 37 times 73 equaling to 2701. I talk about this in videos. I have a video literally on that number, but also on the 36 as well. And so it'll be interesting to see if anything significant happens on March 6th of this year, a leap year. And that's why with the 6 times 6 and the 36, this is a big number. I keep on saying that. In occult groups.
Fits nicely together, then indeed we can convince ourselves very quickly that that leads to yet another regular Platonic solid. Trying to put 4 of these pentagons around the corner exceeds a total of 360 degrees.
Oh, so even with the Old and New Testaments, Bibles, 39 books in the Old Testament, 27 in the New, and then even with that, even like 9 times 3 is 27. So if out of the 39 chapters of the old book, that's also that connection with 27 as well.
So you already get something that's warped like a potato chip, and it's no good. We're done with pentagons. Hexagons.
Hexagons.
You know what happens with 3 hexagons, of course. The very flat tiling. That's no good. What about heptagons? Well, they don't even really fit into a plane. It's too much. So from there on up, we're sort of done. Nothing new can happen. And now you know exactly why there are 5 Platonic solids and exactly 5 Platonic solids.
Professor.
And there's so many links with the number 5. Anyway.
Is a sphere a Platonic solid?
No, it isn't. Because even if you think about a very fine tessellation, you could not find a tessellation on a sphere where all the faces would be exactly the same and all the edges are all the same and all the vertices are the same. So we're basically done with 3 dimensions. And so I must admit that for many of us, there is indeed a 6th Platonic solid, and it is the Utah teapot. For the people in the computer graphics community, this is such a famous object which has been used again and again to test out rendering software and solid modeling software. And it just shows up in just about every SIGGRAPH paper in some form or another. So we like to think of it as the sixth platonic solid. Now, these regular polytopes are made out of the regular polytopes 1 dimension lower. In the same way that we made platonic solids out of 2D regular polygons, we can now try to make 4-dimensional regular polytopes out of 3-dimensional platonic solids. Each one of these 4-dimensional regular polytopes is of an object that has as a surface a thick crust of 3-dimensional platonic solids. And just like we made a cube out of squares, we're now trying to make a hypercube out of cubes in its surface. We used to take 3 squares and then forcefully try to close this gap of 90 degrees. And by closing it, we force this corner to pop out of 2 dimensions, become a 3-dimensional valid polyhedral corner. And that's the corner of a cube. Now we're doing exactly the same thing, except think that behind each one of these squares, there is a complete cube. And these 3 cubes now are sharing a joint edge perpendicular to this plane in that particular corner. So there's a 90-degree wedge of open space, and we're trying to forcefully close that. And we cannot close that in 3 dimensions if there are cubes behind each one of these 4 visible squares. But trust me, if we really do that and we can pop out in the 4th dimension, we can close up, these cubes, and we get a hypercube.
Those cubes behind these that I was being asked to imagine, they've kind of overlapped with each other now.
No, because they pop out into 4-dimensional space in the same way that when we took these 2-dimensional squares and we forced them to close, they didn't overlap. They just popped out of 2 dimensions into 3 dimensions. And 4-dimensional space is really much bigger than 3-dimensional space. So there's ample room for these cubes to simply pop out and form a true 4-dimensional corner.
But to my 3-dimensional eyes, here sitting in 3D space, I'm like, how did that happen? But if I had 4-dimensional eyes, I'd be thinking, oh,
that's correct. And now you're hitting on the real problem. And so we can figure out that this must be possible, but then can we visualize that? I mean, how do you know what this thing looks like? Well, for that, we have to use some kind of a shadow or a projection of a 4-dimensional object down into 3-dimensional space. And I'm sort of torn between, should we use a shadow or should we use what I would call a wireframe? And you see the trade-off between those 2 options. Just like if I show you the wireframe of the dodecahedron, you can really see through it, and it tells you much more than if you just had a faceless shadow of this object. You can eventually start to get a feeling by looking at 3-dimensional wireframes or projection of such wireframes, what the 4-dimensional object might indeed look like. In doing this projection, we still have an option. We can project in various different ways. We're going from a 2-dimensional square to a 3-dimensional object. And in an oblique projection, I start with the red square in front, and then the blue square is the ones up in the back. And the green lines essentially show me the depths. We can do the same thing by starting with a complete cube. The red cube is in front, the blue cube is in the back, and then the green lines show essentially the extrusion of this cube in this oblique direction. Alternatively, we can use a perspective projection. Everything in the back would appear smaller, and we can look straight at the face. And by doing that, the back face will be a smaller square, so really behind the red square, and the green lines show kind of the depths going from the front to the back. And the same we can do with the complete cube. And we get, in the back, a smaller cube shown in blue, and then the edges that go from the front to the back are shown in green. So here is the oblique projection. You can see the fatter cube being sort of the one in front, and then the thinner cube in the back, and then the slightly conical edges leading from the front to the back. So that's a valid depiction of a wireframe of a hypercube. And here is the alternative model, a perspective projection. So the bluish cube is the front cube, and the yellow cube is the one in the back, which is here much smaller. The red edges that go from the front to the back. And this hypercube has a total of 8 cubes. The front cube in blue, the back cube in yellow, and then some squashed cubes here showing 1 on each of 6 faces. So there's a total of 8 cubes making the surface or the thick crust of the hypercube.
So that yellow cube isn't inside the blue cube?
No, in 4 dimensions it would be sort of up in the 4th dimension a certain distance, and because of perspective projection, what's further up there gets projected into the back and appears smaller in this projection. Now we're going to systematically look at all the Platonic solids, see how many we can group around the shared edge, how much empty space there is, and then we push that one out and push that into a valid 4D corner. The simplest object to start with is the tetrahedron. The tetrahedron has a dihedral angle of 70.5 degrees. We need at least 3 of these tetrahedrons around the edge to make a valid corner. 3, of course, fits very easily. 4 fits. Even 5 fits, but just barely. We just have a few degrees left. And so when we try to fit 5 tetrahedron around this, we just get a little bit bending in 4-dimensional space. And we will need, as we will see, a whole lot of these tetrahedra to make it actually work out. So we can start out with 3 tetrahedra and ask what happens if we forcefully, bend that into a corner. Can we repeat it? And the answer is we will get the simplex, or the 5-cell. So because of the projection, it becomes just a 3-dimensional object, and it loses some of its symmetry. So we have 5 vertices, but the 5th one, to make it as symmetrical as possible, I put here right in the middle. So we get the outer tetrahedron, and then we get the dimples here on each side. They all represent additional 4 tetrahedra, and they don't look very regular, and that's because of the projection. But in 4-dimensional space, all 5 of these tetrahedra are completely regular. And so that's the 5-cell, or the simplex. That's what happens when you take 3 tetrahedra around the shared edge and essentially force out the empty space and bend them into a true 4-dimensional corner. 4 tetrahedra around the corner, we get this object here. Okay, it's called the cross polytope, and it's actually the dual of the hypercube that we've seen before. Okay, so that's the cross polytope, the second regular polytope in 4 dimensions. 5 tetrahedra, put it around the shared edge, you get something that has a lot of tetrahedra. As a matter of fact, this thing has 600 tetrahedra. Most of them are sort of crunched up in the middle here because of the projection, and you just see one giant tetrahedra on the outside, and then adjacent to each faces you see smaller, fairly much flattened out tetrahedra, and you have to just believe me that in there essentially, in addition to this one out here, another 599 tetrahedra. This is called the 600 cell. 6 tetrahedra would exceed the dihedral angle of 360 degrees, and that's like, something warped that is not regular, so that's of no use. We have seen cubes. They have dihedral angles of 90 degrees. 3 of them will fit around an axis, still leave an open gap, and then we fold this one up. We've seen we get the hypercube. If you try to put 4 cubes around the joint axis, you can readily visualize that would readily fill the space without any bending, and so you can tile all of 3-dimensional space with that, but it will never bend and make a regular polytopes in a higher dimension. So we're done with the cubes. The next Platonic solids we may want to try is the octahedron. It has a dihedral angle of 109.5 degrees, so that's less than 120 degrees here, and that means we can indeed fit 3 around a joint edge and still leave a little bit open space, which we can squeeze out and make this then pop into the 4th dimension. And the result is what I believe to be the most beautiful 4-dimensional regular polytope. The 24 cell, made up of 24 octahedra. You can see the outermost octahedron because I chose that to be, preserved in the projection. But then you see these rather flattened octahedra with one triangle here, another triangle, the small one here, and sort of a distorted antiprism in between, and then they're more on the inside. I really like this particular object the most because it's not too complex. You can still see what's going on. You can still look on the inside and see the innermost, very tiny little octahedron at the center. Now, it turns out this object has 1,152 symmetries in 4-dimensional space. And you simply get that by multiplying the symmetries of an octahedron, which are 48, with the number of octahedra, 24. You multiply this out, you get the 1,152, because you can take, in 4-dimensional space, any one of the octahedron and put it in place by suitable rotation of any one of the other 24 octahedra in any one of the 48 possible positions. I live at the street address 1152. And then I found out that this object has 1152 symmetries. I thought that somehow fate really meant me to be, into geometry. The next one on the list is the dodecahedron. It's 116.5 degrees of a dihedral angle. That is still less than 120 degrees, so we can still force 3 of them around an edge and then join them into a valid 4-dimensional corner. It's not bending all that much, and so we will need 120 of those objects in the crust to form a valid 4-dimensional regular polytope. So this is a model of the 120 cell. Of course, you can see the outermost dodecahedron. You can also see kind of this flattened pancake-like, dodecahedron on top here, and each one of the faces has one of those, and then stacked on the inside, there are a few more, adding up to a total of 120 of those. We still have the icosahedron. Unfortunately, it has a very shallow dihedral angle. It is more than 120 degrees. It is actually 138 degrees roughly. And so even 3 of them would not fit around this edge without overlapping. And so we cannot form a valid corner. And unfortunately, this is useless as far as making a 4-dimensional regular polytope. You basically can figure it out yourself, right? You know how to make 5-dimensional regular polytopes. You look at the 4-dimensional regular polytopes, look at their dihedral angles, and figure out, can I fit at least 3 of them around an edge so I can make a valid corner? Most of these regular polytopes in 4 dimensions are very round, and they're not very useful. There are really only 2 of them that actually have some hope of generating a new regular polytopes in higher dimension. One of them is the simplex, or the 5-cell, and the other one is the hypercube.
The other ones have got too shallow an
Yeah,
angle.
the other one have too shallow of dihedral angles, and they just don't make valid corners in the next higher dimension. And so from 5 dimensions onwards, there are really only just 3 regular polytopes in each one of these dimensions. One is the simplex series. You can always make a simplex. By taking a simplex in a particular dimension, I'm starting with...
So 4 dimensions, so just like I've said this in other videos as well. So just like a dot would be considered to be 1-dimensional, a line would be considered to be 2-dimensional because it's 2 points that intersect, creating that that dimension. And that one point couldn't experience itself in 2D. It can't experience itself or understand itself in 3D or 4D or anything like that, even though it is very much a part of it. It doesn't have the capacity or the ability to understand or comprehend those dimensions. It doesn't mean that these dimensions are fiction, because I'm very much alive and I'm 3-dimensional. And so, but I can also understand, because I'm a higher level consciousness being, that there are lower dimensions. And so these are facts. And so what I can do is just look at what I have that's measurable, observable, repeatable, or able to measure or test in whatever way, and try to make educated guesses or educated theories in order to try to visualize or make there to be like a more more of an understanding of this cosmos and the true shape and stuff like that as well. So I hope that makes sense.
The tetrahedron, and then I put another vertex at the center of gravity. And now I use the 4th dimension and essentially raise this vertex up in the 4th dimension until it has exactly the same distance from all the other 4 vertices. That makes a new simplex. And then I can take that particular simplex, put the new vertex at its center, raise it up in the next higher dimension until it is exactly the same distance from all the previously existing vertices, make the next simplex. That always works. So I can work my way up to infinity by always making an additional simplex in exactly that manner. The problem now is, how do we depict those things? Because clearly projecting it down, it could do anything. So it's better to figure out, how do we make a model that has the right connectivity, even though the geometry really is sort of bogus at this point because it's so much distorted from what we originally have. And I have made a few more simplices in higher dimensions. You just need to always add one more vertex and then figure out how to make a nice little graph that will get the right connectivity. So this one has 6 vertices. I claim this is a projection of the 5D simplex.
Yeah, and 2D also exists in 3D, and 3D also exists in 1D, and et cetera. Well, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. It's all within this cosmos, this realm. I do believe that this is a multidimensional simulation, whatever you want to call it, a intelligently designed clock, so to speak, or creation. Not clock. Like, I mean, we utilize a clock in order to exist. But I believe that this is an electrical magnetic reality being projected on a flat plane of inertia via hyperboloids and toroidal fields. And even with that, I give that example of this possibly being, again, a projection, like a perception is reality that we're experiencing via like our mind being the connection, our central nervous system being the connection between our higher level being or level of consciousness or whatever you want to call it, and this earth plane, this dimension or cosmos that I'm experiencing via this three-dimensional avatar. And I don't even think I'm three-dimensional either, by the way. And that's where I'm also saying that, like, even with our electrical magnetic fields that we encompass, whether you want to call it your aura or toroidal fields or whatever, we actually do have measurable, observable during certain, under certain photography and lighting and stuff like that. But we have these fields around us as well. So like for me, that definitely does make it where I am a higher dimensional being and a higher level consciousness being than let's say like a dead thing, like a table or a chair, or a book or whatever. And so like even with Super Mario Bros, like it's being projected like in a 2D realm, even though, and so even with that, like there's digital and cellular life in this cosmos, and we visualize the analogs of the video game, which is how we experience this earth plane as well. There's a collective consciousness, but we at an individual level, that there's only a certain amount of the coding that we're visualizing or perceiving, not visualizing, but perceiving within this realm. Like, I hope that makes sense. Like even a video game, there's only just to like save if like to make it more efficient, video games, like there's only a certain amount of the screen that's being coded in or being visualized, like the analogs or whatever that like when you're playing the game, right? Like you're not seeing the whole thing at one time, right? Like there's like different layers and stages and stuff like that. And again, it's on a 2D screen, but it being experienced in 3 dimension, in a 3-dimensional cosmos or a multi-dimensional cosmos. I think this is beyond 3-dimensional. And I hope that makes sense. It's hard to explain this stuff because it's all complex, and a lot of people, like I don't have a lot of discussions with people out loud about these things at all. Like I wouldn't even say like once in a year. And so people can understand topics more in general just by having these conversations.
The simplex also is the complete graph. Every vertex is connected directly to every other vertex. And you can see in this case, you start at
and holograms and projections. I've also said that as well. They can be perceived as like 3-dimensional beings or whatever you want to call it. And throughout history, we've had advanced technology where we've used projections to scare people, and where like these like beings or these orbs or these UFOs like disappeared as soon as it got into line of sight. Or not line of sight, but like close enough to people where they'd be able to like ascertain if it's a hologram or not, and then like disappears. And we're seeing that in Dubai, New York. I've talked about this before, but like we're gonna be getting like they're getting way more realistic with the holograms and projections, like in the skies that they're friggin' doing, and so this is what I mean. Like it's all a psyops. They're seeing how we react to this stuff, and so that'll be like Stuart Little or whatever it is, like when things finally do happen, like people are not going to react the way they should react because they're going to think it's just another friggin' false flag, or not false flag, sorry, another fake event.
Vertex, there are 5 edges going off, 1 to each of the other vertices. So we want to make a 3D model that has 6 corners, is reasonably symmetric, but not too symmetric. So we could start with an octahedron, but in the octahedron, then when you connect,
that's a really good question. I don't know. Consciousness, I got like that's a good way of putting it, like spirit, consciousness, chi, mana. There's so many different ways that people like talk about it, but I think that is like the that's accessing our the player outside of the game. And I know like people don't like me saying that, but even with Super Mario Bros. And Final Fantasy, like these characters are being played by us. Like we're the ones that are playing these characters, and they like everything that they do within these games has been coded by a creator, a software computer programmer, or multiple ones, and like how we all play the game, like there might be like subtle differences based on like our own interests and stuff like that, but it's all like it's off of the same coded game, and you're not going to have drastic, it's all going to be the same outcome at the end of the day, and it's all like a computer game, and it needs to have a power source in order to even function. So that's another important key piece as well. It needs to have have precious metals materials, and it needs to have a power source. And yeah, and so that could be like the next level, that because that is a very good point. Like it's something that does separate us from like a book. Our awareness, our consciousness, and and we have fields.
Opposite vertices, those three edges would all intersect in the middle. That would be so nice. You wouldn't see what's going on. So you had to deliberately distort this octahedron, warp it a little bit so that those three space diagonals that go through the middle of the regular octahedron, they have separated out. And now they do not intersect with each other anymore. So the trick was really just finding 6 vertices in a relatively symmetrical arrangement so we can connect every one with every other one without any intersections. And that's the game that we have to play for every one of the dimensions that we want to build a simplex model. We already had this object that had 6 vertices completely connected, the warped octahedron, and that actually has an extra free space in the center. And it's so easy, therefore, to put a 7th vertex right here in the center. This one can again be connected to all the other vertices. And so now we have a complete graph of 7 vertices, and that would be a nice model of a 6-dimensional simplex. There is a second sequence that works for all dimensions, and it's called the measure polytope or hypercube sequence. The cube is the object with which we measure the volume of 3-dimensional space, just like the square is the geometrical element that we use to measure 2-dimensional space. Similarly, the hypercube would measure 4-dimensional space. So the measure polytopes are always the equivalent of a cube in the higher dimensions. And the best way of visualizing what's going on is essentially going in stepwise in extrusions. So we start with a line.
There's just so much here, honestly.
Nice of climbing structure for children.
It doesn't look very cubey though, does it? It's hard to see the cube.
Yeah, from some angles, if you look at here, it looks like an oblique kind of squashed cube that starts with one of the cube face, or a very flattened cube. You know, you have just like 3 faces here. And then on the inside, there will be another 3 flat faces, but they, of course, already intersect with edges from some of the other cubes.
We can go cubes all the way to infinity.
That is correct. So, you know, we started out...
Cubes go all the way to infinity.
With the 5 platonic solids, we went to the 6 regular polytopes in 4 dimensions. And after that, I said 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. I have shown you 2 of those 3 series, the simplex series and then the measure polytope series. So
I think that's the trinity that people talk about as well, that is being misinterpreted.
Must be another one. We've seen that we can make a series of measure polytopes through all the dimensions. In each one of these dimensions, we can also form the dual. Just like in 3 dimensions, we have a cube, and then we have its dual, which is the octahedron. And if I hold it that way, you can see the top and bottom vertex in my right hand correspond to the top and bottom face in this particular cube. For each of the 6 faces in the cube, I now have a vertex, and for each of the vertices in the cube, I now have a face.
Like its evil twin.
Yep, or nice twins, actually.
Yeah.
So they're duals of one another. We also have the models that show the same relationship, not quite as obvious, in 4 dimensions. So here we have the measure polytope, the hypercube, and if we take the 8 cubes in the crust of the hypercube and replace them by 8 vertices, we get the corresponding measure polytope, which is the dual to this hypercube.
Evil twin.
Dual.
And the same principle goes on.
Look at the shape. Like, oh my God, that's just
on. It gets near impossible to kind of visualize in higher dimensions. But again, every measure polytope in D dimension is made out of measure polytopes of D minus 1 dimension. You replace each one of those cells with a vertex at its center and connect them properly, and you get the cross polytope, which is the dual to the measure polytopes in any one of these dimensions. And that's the 3rd series that we can form. Here is again our sequence. You know, we have infinitely many polygons in 2 dimensions. We have 5 platonic solids in 3 dimensions, 6 polytopes in 4 dimensions, and from there on, it's just always only 3 regular polytopes. So in conclusions, I think I can say we're so lucky that we live in one of the 2 dimensions where it's really interesting and we have a variety of different regular polytopes.
We don't live in the most interesting dimension, though. We live in the 2nd most interesting.
Well, if you think that we live in space-time continuum, which is 4-dimensional, so we live in that one too.
Yeah, so some people call like space-time. I'm not. That's for me. I don't like that explanation. I don't like that explanation. I know I'm going on all like this number stuff, but I think it really does connect things. And so, and the circle, I'm fixated on the circle because a circle is different than a friggin' ball, right? Even a sphere is different than a ball. A sphere could be even half a ball. A sphere could be like a friggin', anyway. It could be a rotating, like a triangle that's rotated at 360 degrees. Okay. And this looks like the astrological wheel that the sun travels through. This looks like a clock. And this looks like it's a circle. 360 degrees. Anyway.
Matt, a question that has likely nagged you at some point is why a circle is composed of 360 degrees. Why not something simpler, like 10 degrees or 100 degrees? All the calculations would have been so simple. Wouldn't that be more convenient? Believe it or not, 360 is actually the ideal solution. A number like 10 or 100 would have been more inconvenient.
I get so intimidated because I mean I can because I know that people in my feed are academics. Like I've looked at the demographics and stuff like that, and so like I know I set myself up for like really hard questions, and I'm open to it because like I do want to eventually do like debates with other people, you know, publicly, in order to try to possibly like sway their opinion in a very peaceful diplomatic way. And so this is all good practice for me, even though they're really hard questions. Hi Don, who do you think the real creator is in your opinion? So I'll start with that one. I think that there's like the creator or creators that design this cosmos. I think that it's this being or this higher level energy, higher dimensional entity, this higher dimensional energetic being created this cosmos in a accessing their higher levels of consciousness. So I really do think that there was a lot of like love, care, and attention that was put into this cosmos, and so I will say that, and I do believe that to certain degrees we're being divinely guided for those who want and like who are living on like that virtuous path. But there could be multiple creators as well. So just like the video game analogy with Super Mario Bros, like that there's more than one person that designed that game and the characters and put all the coding together and the patents and all of that stuff. And there's that there's even like other people that that put the energy like sources together in order to to have the ability to even play these games. And so there's just a lot of care and attention and stuff like that has been put into even video games that we play and that we've created and developed. And so there's possibly even like multiple layers in beyond their realm as well. And there could possibly be even negative dimensions, right? So there could be like beyond like the dot, there could be like a zero dimension or a negative dimension as well, right? It's like not just the 1D, but the negative 1D or whatever, and then negative 2D. But yeah. Would it be any of the gods' religions we have here? Do you think we have relationships with them? What happens after death? Yeah, so I think that a lot of the religions and occult groups with their written literature and scriptures and even like the verbal, the oral transmission of history, actual history, hieroglyphs and petroglyphs, I really do believe in my humble opinion. And again, I'm open to changing my mind based on new research and new data, but that people are misrepresenting or misinterpreting astrotheology or astrotheosophy. So the relationship of the luminaries and how they impact this cosmos and us, and so like I do believe that in a lot of these religions there's a lot of and occult groups and things like that. I believe that there's good and bad interpretations of these works, and it's based on the person that's reading it and how they're interpreting it and what they want to do with that information or their interpretation of it. And so even with that, like beings that are like even with Jesus Christ, for example, like that possibly being I believe that to be a representation of the sun and its path through the zodiacal belt. There's also Mithras and Dionysus and Krishna and Horus and Dionysus and Helios and Apollonius and so many other beings throughout history from other religions, countless other religions, thousands of other religions that also have like the same stories and the same birth story, etc. With the 25 December virgin birth and like 12 disciples or followers or titans or you name it, and it's all very redundant. So even with Caesar and with Pythagoras and Plato and others like that, like these are all also, I believe, to be not real beings. These were all mythological representations of various luminaries. And that's the same thing with how when people are assigned at birth, you know what I mean? Like a Capricorn, for example, for me, because I'm a Capricorn. My sun sign is Capricorn. But if I was to read literature on like what is a Capricorn, like what are Capricorns like, you know what I mean? And like that's how I got my information, instead of like figuring out what I'm like on my own, like by like looking and exploring like my own interests and hobbies and my desires and my passions and like all of that stuff. Then I'm not even giving myself a chance, right? So like that's where like even with when people like assign themselves roles within government, like yeah, there's like pros and cons to that as well. So I think it's just like misinterpretation. And then at an individual level, if people aren't doing the work in order to be good human beings, they're going to always hurt people, right? So hurt people, and when people can blame a religion or a cult or a group to hurt other people because like they have a misinterpretation of scriptures, for example, then like I don't know, it's look what it causes. It's caused so much harm in the world. And so with death, I don't believe that we truly have a death. I feel we have a physical death of this avatar, but I believe that energy is transferred. I don't believe it's destroyed. I don't believe it's terminated. But anyway, so I believe that the energy transfer that happens is we re-inhabit or we go back into our higher level being that's playing this avatar, if that makes any sense. So like just like a Super Mario Bros character, I keep on bringing that up. Let's say I was playing Super Mario Bros, like you've got that like Luigi. Let's say like if I'm playing Luigi, like he's doing all the work and like in the game and stuff like that. And so I'm playing him, like I'm the, and even with that, like there's like rules that we have to abide by within like based on the coding of the game. There's like nothing beyond the parameters of the coding in the game that we can do, right? That I could do with that character. And yeah, so even changes that are made in that character, it's all like within the game structure, coding, whatever you want to call it, algorithms. And so when I stop playing the game, like let's say Luigi dies because like I shit the bed on a level or whatever you want to call it, I made a mistake. I could play that Luigi character as many times as I want, and from like various different platforms if I saved him, and come back to it. But I'm still me, right? And as soon as I finish playing that game, I still have like all of this like life to live. You know what I mean? That's like I don't even play video games, but but that's just an example. But I believe that this video game is a lot more divine, a lot more complicated in its design, and a lot more moving parts, obviously. And but when this avatar dies for whatever reason, like the energy transference is just gonna I'm just going to go back into my my life beyond this cosmos. I think Rudolf Steiner, I've read a lot of his work and I've listened to a lot of audiobooks. Very, very interesting works, but I also believe that there's there's subtle misinformation in there designed to keep us like distracted and like not really fitting all the pieces together accurately. And so yeah, so there are things even with his work, even though again like he's a freaking genius, I'm not taking that away from him, but there's a lot and incredible work. And I even for my sister for Christmas, I actually got her Rudolf Steiner's his greatest work. So I literally like I buy his books, I have his books. But there's still like stuff that I'm coming at his work from a critical lens, and so like I'm not taking everything he says verbatim, and there are things I do disagree with because of my own interpretation of astrotheosophy and the sciences and my own experiences. But again, I have no idea. Like these are like literally the questions that philosophers have talked about. It's funny enough, like for like since the dawn of time, and so these are just my own interpretations. I have no idea if that's correct or not. And I could be way off.
convenient mathematically speaking. You see, the number 360 is divisible by every number from 1 to 10, aside from 7. It actually divides into 24 different numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 18, 20, 24, 30, 36, 40, 45, 60, 72, 90, 120, 180, and 360 itself. These 24 numbers are called the divisors of the number 360. This is the highest number of divisors for any positive whole number up to its own value of 360. For example, the number you might assume would be most convenient for the full circle, such as 100, has only 9 divisors. Numbers are said to be highly composite if they are positive integers with more divisors than any smaller positive integer has. The only highly composite numbers below 360 are 1, 2, 4, 6, 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 120, 180, and 240. Highly composite numbers are considered good base numbers
With the 12 again.
with which to perform common calculations. For example, 360 can be divided into 2, 3, and 4 parts, and the resulting number is a whole number. The resulting numbers are 180, 120, and 90. However, dividing 100 by 3 doesn't end in a whole number. Instead, it provides a decimal value
Are you
of
seeing it? Are you seeing the 333, the like the 120, the 180, like all that?
33.3 recurring,
Even with the rosary beads, with the 108. Anyway, I've talked about 108
which makes
as well.
performing calculations much more difficult. Calculations using 360 are quite simple once you become used to them.
Jack.
One theory for why a full circle is 360 degrees comes from the Babylonians. The Sumerians and Babylonians used the sexagesimal numeral system, a system with a base value of 60, while the current system we use is known as the decimal system and has a base value of 10. So, once we reach the 10th number, we start repeating the symbols, or previous numbers from 0 to 9, to form
60 seconds, 60 minutes.
new numbers. The Babylonians had 60 different symbols with which they formed numbers. Again, why would they use 60? Because 60, just like 360, is a highly composite number with up to 12 factors. Just as we can count 10 on our fingers for the decimal system, we can also count to 60. Start by counting the knuckles of the 4 fingers, not the thumb, on your right hand. 12, right? Now, on the other hand, raise any of those fingers to note that you finished one iteration and got the number 12. Now, repeat the same procedure as many times as the number of fingers remaining on the left hand. The number you will end up with is 12 knuckles times 5 fingers, which equals 60. Now, to tie this all together, if we were to draw an equilateral triangle with the length of sides equal to the radii of a circle, and place one of its vertices at the center of the circle, then we could fit a total of 6 such equilateral triangles inside a circle. Since the Babylonians used the sexagesimal numeral system, they considered each triangle to have a base value of 60. Thus, 6 triangles times 60 base value again gives us a value of 360. In many different geometric applications and historical records, the number 360 has been a useful and powerful tool. And while we may count on the decimal system for most of our calculations and measurements, the sexagesimal system is far from forgotten.
So I'm not even done there. Like, this is what I mean. Like, I'm connecting this. It's not a friggin' ball. This this flat plane of inertia is possibly or likely being projected down, like, onto a circular plane. Say, like a plate is circular, a CD, a disc is a circular, a record label is friggin' circular, a table could be circular, like on the top, you know, like looking down, and you name it. I'm gonna keep on with this. I know this is a long friggin' video, man. Sorry.
It's all right. This is kind of like a school kind of problem, but it's actually hard to solve. For a long time, we only had an approximation of the answer.
He's gonna get into trigonometry and stuff like that, and how easy it is, and how people that like talking about like astronomical mathematics and like spherical geometry and trigonometry and mathematics, like it's based on curves and stuff like that. And like I'm showing you, and he's gonna show you just how easy it is to do the math. I mean, not easy, it's complicated, but it's not as hard as you're making it out.
And we actually, for the first time, have an exact answer to the goat problem. So let me tell you what it is. It does involve a goat. You've got like a fence going around a circular field. And you have tethered a goat to the fence. So to the side of that circle. So this is some sort of rope of length. What do we call this? Length R. So the field has a radius of 1. Why not? And now we're going to tether a goat to the side of the field. And let's say the rope has length R. Okay, there you go. Let's do a little goat.
That is confusing that we made it up.
Well, it's kind of R, because if you look at where the goat can reach, it's kind of a radius of a circle. So this is where the goat can graze. So this is a fixed point where you've tethered the goat. The goat can now roam as freely as that tether will let him. And so he can graze on the field. And the question in the goat problem is, how long should the rope be if you want the goat to graze on half the field? And that feels like something
I'm a loser.
you might
I'm a
be able
nerd.
to solve maybe with school level maths. You can get quite far with school level maths. Let's see how far we can get.
It feels easy.
Yeah, it feels easy. And this is why people are so frustrated when you tell them this.
So real chick nerds, like we it's not just like you put on glasses like, oh, I'm a nerd, and then like do their OnlyFans, right? Like, no, I'm an actual nerd. There's no friggin', it's,
problem.
It can be boring.
I tell you what, I gather this is a problem that they used to teach a lot in US Navy academies. I don't know if they're teaching this as an example of being used to difficult problems, because they would teach this in these Navy academies, and they would say, and you can do this, there's no exact answer. And people were frustrated and go, surely this must have an exact answer, but no exact answer was found until recently, and it involved some hard maths.
How would a school student attack this problem?
All right, so let's do another circle. Let's make that the center of the field. Do a little X for the center of the field. And let's say my goat can eat some sort of circular area like this, something like that. So my goat can reach all the way to the
geometry set
here. And my goat can
Get it
reach
out.
all the
No, just
way
kidding.
to the fence here. And then he can eat all this kind of curve here. So it's a fraction of a circle with a radius of R. This angle here that I've just made, let's give it a name, alpha. I'll use alpha for the angle. I nod. Okay, it's a good name for that for an angle.
Good grassy number.
It's
grassy alpha.
Yeah, I actually have a geometry set. I don't want to open it up too much because everything's gonna fall out. But yeah, I have that all. The compasses, like the friggin' different. Anyway, I'm not a real nerd unless you have a unless you have that set.
Alfalfa.
You think alpha is grassy?
Alfalfa. Yeah, like it's, I don't know.
So this is how you would start to calculate this with a bit of trig. I'm not going to go through all the details of the trig because it's boring. So what is the area of the field? Well, it's a circular field. It has a radius of 1. So you use your traditional formula for working out the area of a circle, and the field is going to have an area of pi. But we want the goat to eat half the field, so pi over 2. Copy that?
Okay, pi over 2 is what we want the goat to have.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, now you've given us his eating.
Yeah.
Some of his eating area there.
Yeah, so this is some of his eating area, isn't it? I've kind of missed off some bits here. I'll come to that as well. So what I'm going to do is a little bit of school level trig. So when I say trig, I mean, it's angles and sines and causes and triangles and things like that. The length of the rope is going to be 2 cos, and then it's alpha over 2. It's half of this angle here. But it kind of doesn't help me work out the length of the rope. That's what I'm trying to work out, because now I've just sort of changed the problem because I need to work out what the angle is. Okay, so that's what we're doing next. So that part is not so hard. Working out the angle is where it starts to get hard. Okay, so if you calculate this, what we can calculate is alpha is a fraction of a full circle.
You know what? Like I appreciate. I was told I was a cool nerd. I really appreciate that. A lot of people I know that are really smart, like genius level smart, are actually like really chill, cool people like that. Like what you would consider to be like the operator types. Like the people that are the real truthers, like the real intellectuals, also seem to be the types that are healthier, either like work out in a gym or work out in nature, doing like the more like nature yoga stuff, but still very healthy and more mindful of their diets and just like more open-minded, less crazy. Like I think that like Fauci, for example, is not a nerd. He's a criminal, a lobbyist. Yeah, not a nerd. This guy's a nerd. He seems chill. I would love to hang out with this guy. I would love to do an interview with this guy. That'd be so fun.
So I know that this area here is a fraction of a full circle of radius r. I can also work out, if I start at the center here, a different circle, because I've missed off these bits here. So let's try and get those back.
Oh.
This is a fraction of a circle.
Just by doing that, just by the intersecting lines, like just connecting like from here to the center point. Yeah, anyway. Mind blown, right? Like they try to make it seem so
complicated. We could talk about this angle and we could work out, if I worked out that angle, it's going to be related to alpha. So I'm not going to do all those calculations. But we can work out this fraction of a circle as well and then add it together.
And by the way, this, yes, also a ball. This could apply to a ball as well, looking downwards on a ball, but also half a ball as well, looking downwards on half a ball, like from either side of that half a ball even could be considered a sphere. And then anyway, I could go on a friggin' tangent with that, with the different shapes, like even a circle or a plate or a CD can like create this shape, which is not a fully entirely solid shape.
This area, but oh no, wait, hang on. This diamond shape that I've got here, can you see it's overlapped? So I've got an overlap, kind of like two triangles and it's all overlapping. You remove the overlap and then you've got the area the goat has eaten.
That's pretty freaking
I've not
cool.
gone through the trig details because we would just be here looking at sines and causes for a long time. But this is what you would get, pi plus.
Even with the bow and arrow, like even in some of the spirals, like with some symbols that are drawn, like they have like it looks like an arrow, but a curved arrow. And then like the direction that the energy, the electricity or the magnetism is flowing, it shows you like the directions, because as within, so without. So even as like the spiral goes inwards, there's also like another point where it goes outwards as well. And very interesting.
Alpha, so that's not angle. Cos of alpha minus sine of alpha. That's the area that the goat is eating. Hopefully you can see why I didn't go through all the details, because it's actually quite a nasty calculation to do.
Notice how alpha looks like the Pisces symbol, like the fish symbol. The Pisces symbol is the 6-9. I don't know why. But like the fish symbol. Cancer is also seen as the 6-9 in some cultures.
Then, if we solve this, is we're going to find the angle alpha. And then that's okay because I have a formula for the length of the rope there. That's where we do one last step. And then we'll get
fish
that length of the rope. So it's actually calculating that angle. That's important for us for now. And we want this area that the goat is eating to be half the field. And half the field is pi over 2. So we set this equal to pi over 2. We're trying to solve this equation. It's not a particularly nice equation. It's trig. And in fact, this is difficult to calculate because it's called a transcendental equation. So it sounds like a nice name, but it's a difficult kind of equation to solve. A nice equation to solve is what we call a polynomial. And that's the kind of things you get where you have x squared plus x minus 6, those kind of things. They're quite easy to solve. And when you do, you get an exact answer at the end. So I can then say x is equal to, and I could write something down. It might have square roots and horrible things in it, but I can give you an exact.
Longer than the radius of the field.
So it is 1.15872847301 ...
So just longer than the radius of the field.
So it is, yeah, it's a little bit longer than the radius of the field. I would have expected, if you asked me to guess, I would have gone root 2, square root of 2, something like that. That's what the answer I expected it to be. I think that's where some people get frustrated with this, because they want it to be an answer like that. But that's not what we've got. And there is, well, until recently, there is no exact answer. It's that ... that shows you it's not exact. It's a decimal, goes on forever. And yes, I mean, we've got an equal sign, but equal ... We can make this more
just like
accurate.
Pi, just like pi.
Better approximations. But I could never tell you like an exact answer, like a little equation or a little formula telling you what the length of this rope is. What's surprising about that problem, why it's surprisingly hard, is because the 3-dimensional version of it is easier. The three-dimensional version is a bird in a cage.
Listen to what he just said. The three-dimensional version is easier.
Imagine having a spherical cage of radius 1, and you've got a bird tied with a thread, and then that bird can then fly wherever it's allowed to fly.
People are making up this like astronomical this and like cosmic friggin' all of this friggin' like mathematics. Like they're making this shit up. I've looked at the astronomical mathematics. I've done the calculations and stuff like that. I know how and why they get the axis being 23.5 degrees. It's not that. First of all, show me a fucking axis on a basketball or a tennis ball. Show me the axis. Show me a 23.5 degree tilt of that. You know, and duplicate that in nature. Using electricity and magnetism, I dare you. Not gonna friggin' happen. And but yeah, and so like on the actually, let me see. I'm just gonna pull it up. I hope this doesn't make. I'm just gonna look in my images to see if I can show you the sine wave again, just to make it a little easier. I like Walter Russell's. Actually, no. Like I'll play this out first.
You can fly around. What does the length of the thread need to be half the volume of the sphere? That should be a harder question. Turns out to be easier. Yeah, you can actually solve it. Here's the answer. The equation you get to solve is something like this. It's 3r to the power 4 minus 8r cubed plus 8 equals 0. I mean, it's a traditional mathematical equation. It's a polynomial. And if it's a polynomial, that will have an exact answer. It might have square roots in it. It might look a bit nasty, but it will have an exact answer. In fact, when this was solved, Marshall Fraser was a mathematician who solved this. He did give an approximation for this answer. His approximation was that thread was 1.22855 and then something. So he did originally give an approximation, but a few years ago, an exact answer was given. And this is kind of nice for me. It was a couple of friends of mine who did it. So this is nice. I get to give them a shout out. This is Nick and Graham Jameson. Actually, Graham was my lecturer at university, and Nick is my friend for other reasons. So, hey guys, this is really nice. And they actually worked out the exact answer for the bird version of the goat problem. And it's this.
See, like this guy, like he seems like such a chill guy.
All right, you ready? And it is a monster, so are you ready?
I'm ready.
My friends actually broke it down into two parts because it's such a difficult thing to write down. They defined something called A, and this is a horrible thing as well. So A is 16 over 9 plus 4 over 3, and inside a couple of brackets, we've got 4 plus square root of 8 cube rooted, and then we add on another bracket here, which is going to be 4 minus square root of 8 in a bracket. I'm going to cube root that as well. And then that's just halfway there, because then the length of the rope thread for the bird is going to be 2/3 plus a half of square root of A. That's where that A comes in, minus, and then we've got another horrible thing, another square root of 16/3 minus A. Wow.
Easy.
Plus 128 over 27, and a square root of A down there as well. Whoa, it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's outrageous, but it is an actual exact answer to this problem.
So I could write that down as a decimal number.
You could write that down as a decimal number, but I mean, that's what Marshall Fraser did. He didn't want to calculate that outrageous expression. So he said, well, I'll just approximate it, and maybe that's kind of more useful in some situations. But in this case, this is a solvable problem. Actually, in higher dimensions, it gets easier. If you keep going up into the dimensions, 4 dimensions, 5 dimensions, so on, the goat problem, the length of the rope starts to tend to an answer, and it tends to 1.41.
Check this shit out. Anyways, with the 141 and
1.421 ... Always the square root of 2.
Square root of 2.
It actually tends to the square root of 2. So
square root of 2 is the answer.
It actually gets easier somehow as you go into higher and higher dimensions. And I would have expected the answer to be.
Like, how is that not anyways, how is that not proof of like the unified cosmos experiencing itself dualistically?
Square root of 2. Just intuitively, that would be my guess. Like, square root of 2 feels right to me. Maybe that's just me, but it just feels right. But it's the 2-dimensional one.
I mean, even when you add them together, it's 3.14.
All the problems.
Anyway.
It's just really, really hard to solve. Well, until recently, we now have an exact answer. This has finally been solved. It's been solved by a German mathematician called Ingo Ulrich. And to solve it, he actually had to use some higher level maths. He used complex analysis. So he calculated that uses complex numbers. And he calculated the areas using functions.
Okay, so he's using complex
we're going to
math.
evaluate
Okay,
this
so
when we do evaluate it at
not as interesting.
Formula for the first time. Although this formula is hard to work out, and if you wanted to work it out, you'd be better off approximating the values.
That's why
anyway. So it's still calculated by approximations. But hey, we've got the first formula for the angle alpha.
So you would then put that into...
You then take that alpha, put it straight into the formula that we had with our trig. So the trig is still there as our final step.
And that's just going to change the length by like billionth of a nanometer sort of thing.
I have no idea. Because I don't think it's actually been calculated because it's
hard. So we know the exact number, but no one would probably bother calculating. You couldn't put that into Wolfram Alpha.
Hey, talk about pi r squared already.
I don't think we can. Even Wolfram Alpha, I think, would struggle to calculate this answer.
Why did this mathematician do this? Why did he spend his time? Just
I don't want to speak for him, but I can guess if you want. I mean, it is an exercise in his methods in mathematics. It's practice. This is not an important problem, but it is a way to practice your tools, and then you can use that practice one day in the future for problems you do care about.
Okay, here's a puzzle for you. It involves rotating a die, using the numbers on the face, and moving it around this board. It's the latest brain bender from Jane Street, today's episode sponsor. And to check out the details, have a look at their website.
I just have one more video that I wanted to share with you. I know it's a long one. I highly recommend people take a look at that channel. Number file and look at numbers and see the connection with gematria.
I've come across these terms.
And numerology. This guy's super interesting as well.
That's what comes up when you search for the combination 369 Tesla on YouTube. A pile of seriously viral videos. 7 million views. Not bad, huh? A lot of these videos feature a curious diagram in their thumbnails. This diagram is usually referred to as the vortex and is one of the main topics covered in these videos. You've all heard of Nikola Tesla, the genius inventor of the Tesla coil and other early electrical devices, right? The Tesla car, that Tesla. But did you know that Tesla also had a host of idiosyncrasies centered around the number 3? For example, Tesla would walk 3 times around a block before entering a building. He would only stay in hotel rooms with a room number divisible by 3, and so on. In general, he was convinced that the numbers 3, 6, and 9 hold the key to the universe. According to the champions of vortex maths, the vortex is that key. That sounds a bit nuts. But as I said, I'd never heard of vortex mathematics, and so I was curious to find out more. And 7 million people can't be wrong, right? Also, although vortex math was
I just wanted to make sure.
Stumbled across
like sometimes again, because it's like 6:45 in the morning, but like sorry, a question was asked just about the radius knowing 2 points, but the circumference, so C equals 2 pi r. They're saying so, pi r squared. Oh, wrong thing. So this is the diameter, radius. Oh, he's still playing. Should I forgot to pause him? Okay.
Then there is this infinity-shaped loop connecting 6 of the points. The remaining 3 points, 3, 6, and 9, form an equilateral triangle. And depending on which video you watch, some extra lines get added like this, or like this, or like this. The last version of the diagram is the one that I have been familiar with for many years. It's part of a famous sequence of diagrams, one diagram for each positive integer. This sequence of diagrams starts out like this. There's a diagram for 1, for 2, for 3, for 4, for 5, and so on. 9, that's the vortex. And then things continue like this. Okay.
And then so even with the so even with the diameter would be half, like it would be half the radius squared.
No? Well, then let's keep on going.
For anyone on Rumble or X that are wondering why I'm answering questions randomly, just like on the live feed on YouTube, some people are asking me questions. I'm getting more questions on YouTube than X. I'm not getting anything on X. I don't think people can even see it. But also look at this. Sorry, this is what I wanted to get. That this is really important. I'm gonna back it up a little bit, because this is what I also think to be also like very important, and with the connection with the eye, the shape of the eye, like the blackness in the center, and
is the one that I have been familiar with for many years. It's part of a famous sequence of diagrams, one diagram for each positive integer. This sequence of diagrams starts out like this. There's a diagram for 1, for 2, for 3, for 4, for 5, and so on. 9, that's the vortex, and then things continue like this. Okay.
Isn't that neat?
All look a little familiar? No? Well, then let's keep on going. Okay. What's going on here? Well, I'm sure a lot of mythological regulars will recognize these diagrams and the pretty curve that is starting to materialize. We already encountered these diagrams in the mythology video on the times table, the Mandelbrot set, and the heart of mathematics. The curve is called the cardioid, the mathematical heart curve. It pops up in mathematics
called the heart curve
all over the place. For example, it's the curve you get when you roll a circle around another circle of the same diameter, like this. It's also the curve that you often see in cups on sunny days. Okay. And it's the curve that takes center stage in the Mandelbrot set.
I think this is so cool.
There it is. Actually, there's more, much more. Every positive integer does not only give rise to one of these cardioid instance diagrams, but to a whole family of line diagrams. And a lot of these extra diagrams are also incredibly complex and beautiful. Here are just a few examples.
Look at that. It's all connected.
It's spectacular, isn't it? It gets even more impressive when you color the segments in the diagrams according to their lengths. Whoa, not bad, huh?
He's even got the colors.
But that's enough big pictures. We're on a mission. Remember, our goal is to make sense, mathematical sense, of the vortex, which includes making sense of its mysterious relatives. Interested? Well, why wouldn't we be, right? So let's get going.
I like his shirt too. I don't think 666 is an evil number. I think that it's whatever you assign to something. It's just how you're going to interpret it, its meaning, you know, and how you're going to react or behave or respond based on that. But it says 333, only half evil, hilarious. So this guy must be like chill as fuck too in his personal life. But yeah.
Okay. All the Tesla code videos I mentioned earlier introduced the vortex in essentially the same way. Here we go. Start with the powers of 2. So begin with the number 1, and then every number is double the number before it. Next, for each number in this table, we calculate its so-called digital root. For this, we keep adding the digits of a number until we end up with a single digit. For example, in the case of 128, the sum of the digits is 1 plus 2 plus 8 is 11. Now, 11 is not a one-digit number yet, and so we keep on going. 1 plus 1 is 2. And so the digital root of 128 is 2. Easy, right? Now let's do this for all the numbers in our sequence. There. Let's string up those digital roots on the circle. First 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7. In fact, we'll keep on going like this forever. 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, and so on, over and over.
Shape as the
pretty cute and also pretty surprising,
video.
Now, instead of doubling, let's look at the sequence we get by halving. Again, starting with 1. 1 half is equal to 0.5, 1/4 is equal to 0.25, and so on. Let's calculate the digital roots of these numbers. Looks familiar, right? Let's check what happens on the circle. 1, 5, 7, 8, 4, 2, the same digital roots as for doubling, just in reverse order. Again, repeating forever and ever after. Also pretty cute, right? But notice that there are 3 numbers that never get visited. 3, 6, and 9.
Isn't that neat?
3, 6, and 9. Whoa. At this point of the discussion,
and then it forms a triangle.
3, 6, and 9 from the cycle.
The golden triangle.
As a telltale sign, we're dealing with some sort of divine message, some secret code, the powerful key to the understanding of the universe that Tesla was raving about.
I saw Slave's triangle.
Well, maybe. I have to admit that I'm not quite able to follow the line of reasoning here. However, judging by the zillions of likes these videos attract and the enthusiastic comments, pretty much everybody else watching appears to be in awe and fully on board with what's going on here. Must be just me, I guess. Of course, there's more evidence that the vortex is the key to the universe, much more. Now we're told to look at what happens when we keep doubling and halving, starting with 3 and evaluating the digital roots of the resulting numbers. There. Whoa, the plot thickens. Both for doubling and halving, the digital roots alternate between 3 and 6. There. 3, 6, 3, 6, 3, 6, and so on. And there. 3, 6, and 3, 6, and 3, 6 again. The alternating 3, 6 then corresponds to a line between those numbers in the diagram. Definitely key to the universe, right? And what about the 9? At this point in time, the makers of all those videos get really excited. We get all 9s. Amazing.
Isn't that neat?
To round things off, it's then also pointed out that a lot of the other famous numbers in maths have digital root 9. For example, 360, 180, 90, 45 degrees, the number 666, this guy here. All those numbers have digital root 9. Key to the universe. How can it be otherwise? Okay, I can see plenty of you screaming at your computers, trying to get a button. And yes, of course, you're correct. Everything we've seen so far has a fairly simple mathematical explanation, part of which just about everybody has been exposed to in school. An explanation that, by the way, never gets mentioned in Vortex maths videos. Funny that. Right. Where in school mathematics do you add digits of a number? Remember? Divisibility tests. If you want to find out whether or not a number is divisible by 9, you just add its digits and check whether this digit sum is divisible by 9. That's how it's usually taught in school. As a refresher, let's do an example, 527. Okay, 5 plus 2 plus 7 is 14, and 14 is not divisible by 9, and so 527 is also not divisible by 9. Well, of course, if that works, then you can repeat adding the digits until only the digital root remains. And then, very simply, a positive integer is divisible by 9 exactly if its digital root is 9. In our example, the digital root is 1 plus 4 is 5. So the digital root is not 9, and we come to the same conclusion as before. 527 is not divisible by 9. In school, they usually don't teach this simple digital root extension of the standard divisibility test for 9. Of course, they should teach this in school, but they don't. In fact, what they should also teach is that if the digital root of a number is not equal to 9, then this digital root is simply the remainder of that number on division by 9. Nice, huh? So the remainder of 527 on division by 9 is our 5 up there. Great. Now, just out of interest, were any of you out in Viewland taught this remainder extension in school? Anyway, very much worth knowing and teaching, don't you think? I'll show you the simple proof for all this in a little while, but for the moment, let's keep on going. To explain what's really going on with all that vortex math, I need to remind you of 2 more super important properties of remainders on division by any number, as well as the digital root's counterpart of those properties in this special case of 9. Nothing scary, really just primary school level math, promise. What are those properties? Well, the first property is that the remainder of the sum of 2 numbers equals the remainder of the sum of the remainders of the 2 numbers. And the second property is the exact corresponding statement for products of numbers. That's all a bit of a mouthful, but a quick example will make it clear what I mean, and at the same time show you why it works. Okay, let's just stick with division by 9, and let's pick 2 random integers, 527 and
This might be a boring section.
Okay, now let's use these properties to explain.
So skip over that whole thing.
Now let's use these properties to explain what's going on inside the vortex. Remember, we started by looking at the sequence of powers of 2. In other words, we kept multiplying by 2, starting with 1. But now it's clear from our discussion just now that to generate a sequence of digital roots highlighted in green, we can also just keep multiplying by 2 and digital rooting on the right, right? Let's double check this. Okay, starting with 1 on the right, 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 8 is 16, and the digital root of 16 is 1 plus 6 is 7, 2 times 7 is 14, and 1 plus 4 is 5, 2 times 5 is 10, and 1 plus 0 is 1, and so on. Works. And so looking at it this way, it's actually not such a big surprise that the numbers on the right will eventually repeat. Why? Well, we're always doing the same thing over and over, right? Multiply by 2, followed by finding the digital root. Multiply by 2, followed by finding the digital root. And since there are only 9 different possible outcomes of this operation, things are bound to repeat and then loop on forever. And of course, the same is true if we start with any number and keep doubling and digital rooting. Eventually, things are bound to repeat, and from there on, we'll loop forever. Starting with 3, we get a very small loop, 3, 6, 3, 6, 3, 6, and so on. And starting with 9, well, doubling keeps producing numbers divisible by 9, which all have digital root 9. So just the miniest of mini loops in the case of 9. Okay, that's great. Now, what about those halving sequences? They're a bit unusual. And in fact, I've never seen anybody calculate the digital roots of decimal fractions before watching these Tesla videos. Having said that, with what we know, it's also not hard to explain why we end up with the same sequences of digital roots as before, running in reverse, right? To get those decimal fractions, we keep dividing by 2 to get 1/2 is equal to 0.5, 1/4 is equal to 0.25, 1/8 is equal to 0.125, and so on. Okay, getting there. So as far as mathematics is concerned, the vortex is simply a visualization of what happens when we multiply the remainders in division by 9 by the number 2. In technical lingo, what we are doing here is multiplication by 2 modulo 9. Actually, I almost forgot. If we want to think of the vortex in terms of remainders and not digital roots, we should replace the 9 at the top by 0. You remember that little difference, right? And what about the other diagrams that I showed you earlier? Well, those are visualizations of multiplication by 2 modulo other numbers. Here's a diagram for 5 again, right? Just a quick check there. 4 times 2 equals 8. And when you divide 8 by 5, you get a remainder of 3. Taking that 3, timesing it by 2 gives 6. And when we divide 6 by 5, we get a remainder of 1, and so on. Works. And then, as I already showed you before, as we raise the modulus, the number by which we divide, the first real magic occurs with the cardioid materializing out of nowhere. There. Very nice. But all this is really just multiplication by 2. The other diagrams I showed you, you get when you multiply by other numbers. So, for example, have a look at this crazy diagram here. This is multiplication by 240 modulo 7,417. Who would have thought? Now, multiplication modulo different numbers is super important mathematics with myriads of applications within and outside of mathematics. Finite fields, cryptographic algorithms, number theory in general, and so on. In an app for drawing these diagrams, we then have 2 basic controls, one for setting the number we multiply with, and one for setting the modulus. In fact, let's have another coding competition. Whoever among you submits an online app that implements drawing these diagrams enters into a draw for Marty's and my new book. That one there. Anyway, for the vortex, we have multiplier 2 and modulus 9. Then changing the modulus to 50, we get this. And if we now change the multiplier to 3, we get this. Actually, on closer inspection, there's at least one more aspect of these diagrams which we could also change. Can you guess what I've got in mind here? It's a tricky one and easily overlooked. Let me give you a hint. It's got to do with the...
Look how it's starting to get like different hemispheres, like a brain, like a heart, like an apple, like a pear. Sorry, a peach. Peach, not a pear.
9 occupying a special role in our discussion so far, right? Only for a modulus of 9 can we use the digital root algorithm construct fields. This does not work for any other diagram. So what exactly is it that makes 9 special in this respect? Well, vortex mathematicians will probably tell you that 9 is special. It's just part of Tesla's 369 being the key to the universe. Of course, 9 has to be special, right? Actually, on closer inspection, it turns out that in the first instance, 9 is special because we're writing numbers in base 10. Wait, what? Yes, the visibility test for 9 and all the other digital root magic is a direct consequence of us writing numbers in base 10. Interesting, huh? You want proof? No problem. Let me show you why the remainder of this number on division by 9 is the same as the remainder of the sum of its digits. That's what makes the digital root work, right? Well, 2,567 is just 2 times 1,000 plus 5 times 100 plus 6 times 10 plus 7. And 1,000 is 999 plus 1, 100 is 99 plus 1, and 10 is 9 plus 1. Okay, now expand and collect all the repeated 9 numbers together. There.
So base 10 reality, binary coding using zeros and ones. I've said that as well as possibly like the root.
Now, 9, 99, 999 are all divisible by 9, and so the whole yellow bit is divisible by 9. And the green bit is just the sum of the digits. And obviously, the same is true for any integer. Any integer is equal to 9 times something plus its digit sum. But then, when you're interested in the remainder of the number on division by 9, we can just forget about the whole yellow bit since it's divisible by 9. And so the remainder of our number on division by 9 is equal to the remainder of the sum of the digits. Ta-da! Proof complete. And that's why the digital sum does the trick for 9 and why 9 is special. Okay, but now what happens if you're an alien with B fingers and you write numbers in base B and not base 10 like we 10-fingered earthlings? Well, then everything I said in my little proof remains true, except that 9 changes to a B minus 1, and B minus 1 becomes the special number. In turn, the times 2 diagram for B minus 1 becomes the special vortex diagram for an alien Tesla. It's now this new diagram that can be constructed using digital roots. For example, for the
cells, I love that analogy as well. Like cells split in order to create, to duplicate. And so like when you look at like even cells, like for babies, for example, either like 1 friggin' cell to 2 to 4, like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we get like we turn into friggin', adults, right? Like this is all based on the division of cells. Cells splitting in order to there's so many analogies I can talk about with that, but I won't.
Finger Tesla, we have this vortex. There. And you can check that the digital root in base 8 gives exactly these connections. For example, starting with the 4, we calculate 2 times 4 is 8. 8 in base 8 is 1, 0, and 1 plus 0 is 1. Another example, starting with 5, 2 times 5 is 10. In base 8, 10 is 1, 2, and 1 plus 2 is 3, and so on. Okay, so at least from a mathematical point of view, the vortex is really not that special. It's really just one of infinitely many diagrams that pretty much do the same thing. And definitely, as we've already seen, many of the diagrams with large modulus are a lot more spectacular from a purely aesthetic point of view. Also, even mathematically, there are lots of diagrams that are superior to the vortex in many ways. For example, have a look at the diagram for 11. In this diagrams, the powers of 2 create a loop that is as large as possible, containing...
Look, with the, like, so you can see interpretations of different designs that are made or images. Anyway.
All the numbers except for 11.
Excuse me, my goodness.
It is one continuous loop.
Smoking pot.
Unlike in the vortex, which consists of 2 loops.
Oh my goodness.
That such a maximal loop exists has to do with the fact that 11 is a prime number and that 2 is a so-called primitive element, modulo this prime. If you're familiar with these terms, you'll also recognize that these loops illustrate the fact that for a prime number p, the finite field ZP has a cyclic multiplicative group.
Like that's like the inverse triangle of the golden ratio. That also looks like that Star Trek beamer thing that they had on their chests.
Fact which is of huge importance in mathematics. Okay, so what about the claim that the vortex is the key to the understanding of the universe? Well, today's discussion was really about presenting a sound explanation of the mathematics that comes with the vortex, an explanation that demystifies its supposedly super special properties. I hope that by now it's clear that the vortex is really not as special and amazing as it is made out to be by all those Tesla videos, and that proclaiming it to be the key to the universe, mainly based on these properties, is simply ridiculous. But of course, you knew it already, didn't you? In fact, I wonder what you now think of all those Tesla videos.
One more video.
Have you ever counted the number of petals on a flower? If you counted them on a flower with petals all intact, you would likely discover that the number of petals is a Fibonacci number, that is, a number from the Fibonacci sequence. Many flowers have 3, 5, 8, 13, or 21 petals, all of which are numbers in the sequence. The leaves of cacti and the seeds of sunflowers are arranged in both left and right-handed spirals. The numbers of seeds or leaves in these spirals are also generally in the Fibonacci sequence. We have 2 hands, both of which have 5 fingers, and each finger is divided into 3 parts. All of these numbers are also Fibonacci numbers. Moreover, the lengths of the bones in our hands also fit into Fibonacci ratios. So, what's the Fibonacci sequence anyway, and why is it seemingly everywhere? The Fibonacci sequence is a series of numbers in which a given number is the result of adding the 2 numbers before it. So, if you start with 0, the next number will be 1, followed by 1, followed by 2, followed by 3, and so on. As you can see, every number in this series or sequence is obtained by adding the 2 preceding numbers. Individual numbers in the sequence are often referred to as Fibonacci numbers. Mathematically, the Fibonacci sequence is represented by this formula, where n is greater than 1. You can use this expression to find any nth digit in the sequence. This fascinating sequence is widely associated with the mathematician Leonardo Pisano, also known as Fibonacci. He hailed from the Republic of Pisa, which is why he is also known as Leonardo of Pisa, and is considered to be one of the most talented mathematicians of the Middle Ages. At the time, Europeans were still using Roman numbers, while Hindu-Arabic mathematicians were using a different number system that was more robust and efficient. Fascinated by the brilliance of the Hindu-Arabic numeral system, Fibonacci brought it to the Western world in 1202 through his now famous book, Liber Abaci. In the book, he reviewed and compared the Hindu-Arabic numeral system with other systems, such as Roman numerals, and described how using the Hindu-Arabic system made calculations faster and easier. Although his book contains the earliest known description of the Fibonacci sequence outside of India, it was described in ancient Indian texts by mathematicians as early as the 6th century. So, what makes the Fibonacci sequence so special? To the uninitiated, this famous sequence may just seem like a series of numbers, but the Fibonacci sequence has been discovered and rediscovered in various forms, not only in mathematics, but also all across the natural world and in our everyday lives. There's also another exciting offshoot of the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio. Suppose you have 2 quantities, A and B, wherein A is greater than B. Now, add A and B and divide that sum by A. If this ratio comes out to be equal to the ratio of A and B, then you can say that A and B have a golden ratio, which is represented by the Greek letter phi. Write down the Fibonacci sequence on a piece of paper and calculate the ratio using this formula. You will notice that all Fibonacci numbers have the golden ratio, the value of which is close to 1.618033. In geometry, when the golden ratio is applied as a growth factor, you get a special type of logarithmic spiral, known as a golden spiral. Simply put, a golden spiral gets wider by a factor of phi for every quarter turn it makes. You can find examples and manifestations of the golden ratio and golden spirals in countless places in your everyday life. Seashells are some of the most common examples of the golden spiral found in nature, but
yeah, numbers, they're symbols. They can be seen as that, like I've said that before as well, where like even the 3, could be seen as like as something different, and yeah, anyway, and so it's all symbols, it's all symbolic.
Ocean waves, hurricanes, flower buds, snail shells, and spider webs are just a few of the other naturally occurring examples. Many artists use the golden ratio or the golden spiral in their creative works. Legendary painter Salvador Dali explicitly used the ratio in his masterpiece, The Sacrament of the Last Supper. Architects also commonly use the golden ratio when designing buildings and other massive structures. Popular Swiss-French architect Le Corbusier, who is widely acclaimed as one of the pioneers of modern architecture, explicitly used the golden ratio in his modular system. From snail shells...
Da Vinci as well, like The Last Supper that I've shared countless times in other works. And in old infrastructure, old buildings used to use like that sequence.
Flowers and bananas to the inside of the human ear, iconic buildings and galaxies far out in the cosmos, the golden ratio can be seen everywhere. This is probably why it's also known as the divine proportion. There are so many places to find the golden ratio or Fibonacci numbers that it's impossible to list all of them in one place. And the list...
exactly. The 6 and the 9, it like shows like the yin and yang, like that symbol, and like the spiral. Yeah, that's not an accident.
Is ever growing. What other examples of the Fibonacci sequence or the golden ratio have you observed in your life? Tell us in the comments below.
Yeah, so I thought this was all super interesting. And so I will stop boring people with this stuff because a lot of people do actually go on this channel to look at current events. And so I did talk about that at the beginning. And I was quite triggered and stuff like that because I was talking about Andrew Bushnell, who is, rest in peace, who is a hero, and someone who is really, unfortunately, not getting the attention that he deserves in the media because of his political stance, we'll say. And so I hope that people take a look at that. I don't know if it's a false flag or not. I don't know if it's real or not. Again, it could be another farce. You never know, because like even allegedly with Ashley Babbitt, she may or may not still be alive as well. And I've shared footage of that on Rumble at Don189, and Woo's News also has good footage on that as well on BitChute, like I've said. And so, yep, exactly. So anyways, on that note, I will leave it at that. And I hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.